All right, we'll get started because at the beginning we're going to do some housekeeping stuff anyway. So as people come in, they're not going to be missing much. But, first and foremost, this is a furrowed negative brow reason that we're all coming together. But I'm a huge fan of eyebrows up, turning lemons into lemonade. And at the end of the day, we will all leave here more informed, better prepared. One of my favorite sayings is don't be scared, just be prepared. And so that's, what we're going to do. And here, I'll share my screen. Mm, where is it? There we go. Play from beginning. All right, so most lawyers have a disclaimer on the information. My disclaimer is a lawyer made these slides, me. So sorry about it. You're going to have to deal with it. So again, some housekeeping. Expectations for everyone as we move through the day. Just again, please keep your mic muted, be respectful and kind. And if we do bring you up to speak and actually ask your question out loud, just try to ask it as brief as possible because there are going to be a lot. So the agenda for the meeting, first and foremost, the next legal Q&A will be September 2nd. So mark your calendars for that. And then also September 9th, we have a special event that we're doing. So I did say subscribe to the newsletter because we're going to be having events indefinitely moving forward. But September 9th will be specific to Pride planning. And I'll talk about that more shortly. And then after that, we're going to talk all about the challenges to marriage equality and where I see that going. And then, of course, your Q&A. And also in the next email after this, so the slides, my beautiful slides, will all be emailed to you. So you'll have access to the slides. Feel free to take notes. But I want you to have as much information as possible. So we will email you these slides and a couple of other things that I used in order to put together the presentation that if you're interested in a dork like me, you may want to read, other than just my synopsis of it. So, all right. So who am I? I am Angela, and I have been an attorney for the last 18 years now, actually. So as of this month, so I need to update that. I founded GLG, Giampolo Law Group, 18 years ago. And in addition to Giampolo Law Group, I also co-founded with Tom Yeager's Pride Planning, LGBTQ Pride Planning post-election, as a way to bring the 9 essential LGBTQ estate planning documents to folks in an affordable digital way. Think of it as a gay LegalZoom, if you will. But if I ever did get into the document automation space, which I never wanted to, I always told myself that there would always be a human legal eye over the documents. And so that's really the mission. A lot of people ask me, how is Pride Planning different from LegalZoom? Our documents are queer competent and drafted by queer people for queer people. And there's a human looking over your stuff all the time. And then I also have the Caravan of Hope, a nonprofit that I founded 2016, Trump 1.0. And it's exactly what it sounds like, Caravan of Hope. I take a caravan, 5,000 miles, 14 cities. I take an entire month out of my law practice and provide pro bono legal services to LGBTQ folks in rural and underserved areas. I am in the midst of filming a podcast with the former mayor of Philadelphia called Table in the Back, where we interview people at their favorite table in the back of the restaurant. Shameless excuse to eat out. And then prior to forming GLG and serving the LGBTQ community, I was huge into international human rights and worked in human trafficking and genocide. All right, so September 9th, we're going to have a Pride Planning workshop. Now, the difference between Pride Planning and working with a lawyer or law firm is basically the one-on-one with the lawyer. So we've had a lot of questions come through Pride Planning from folks, and we wanted to try to make it as easy and accessible to you as possible. So we're going to have this workshop. It'll be maybe 2.5 hours, but the goal is I take you through a my private client process. So I have a design meeting, a draft meeting, we then review and approve it, then you sign it, and then we do the trust funding. So the last two we won't be able to do, but the first three we'll do live. I'll pick someone, I'll just do my clarity call, and then we'll pick someone at random, and I'll do a design meeting with them. And then in the back of the where you don't see, Tom will be plugging everything into the software, and poof, the documents will arrive, and then we'll do a draft meeting. We also have a couple companies and some philanthropic clients. We also have heard that even though these are deeply discounted pricing compared to working with a firm, that it is still too expensive for some folks. So we have some philanthropic clients and companies that are going to be sponsoring some free packages for people. So and then I'm going to bring up Tom, my co-founder on Pride Planning, just to talk about Pride Planning, generally what his experience has been, especially post Kim Davis, and a lot of FAQs that people are having. So I've known Tom for a very long time. We actually randomly went to high school together and then reconnected 20 years later as gay lawyers. And in that 20-year time period that we did not know each other, Tom worked at a large law firm, became partner, and then from Ackerman, he went in-house at Marriott and spent 6 years there. And then I was able to poach him last year and to join GLG as CEO or COO. And then from there, when the election happened, we founded Pride Planning, and now he runs that full time. So I miss him day to day, but he's doing good work over at Pride Planning.
Thanks, Angela. Hi, everybody. As Angela mentioned, my name's Tom Yeagers, and thank you for the lovely introduction and bio that's on the screen. I've been an attorney practicing for over 19 years in all the ways that this slide says, through corporate America, and more recently, specifically helping the LGBTQ plus community. As Angela mentioned, LGBTQ plus Pride Planning is an entirely web-based online platform, and really what it does is it brings you these LGBTQ plus nuanced estate plan documents to you at a much lower price point than would be working directly with an attorney. The way we do that is we have a website, obviously. You choose your package. We have a trust-based package, a will-based package. We also have some a la carte packages and items that you can pick from. But generally, you pick a package. You will launch into a questionnaire. We'll gather a little bit of information. You'll hit a paywall. Once you're through the paywall, you'll get the remainder of the questionnaire. The questionnaire is designed to be as easy as possible to walk you through all the information we need to form your estate plan documents. So basically, it'll ask you who you want to make financial and legal decisions for you, who you want to make healthcare related decisions for you, where you want your assets to go, who do you want to take care of your pets. So it's designed to walk you through all of that. Once you complete your questionnaire, we get notified. We begin to work on your documents. So what does that mean? That means legal professionals on the back end go into your questionnaire. They go in through the templated documents that are created, but they go through them one by one. They make sure everything looks correct. If there's anything off in the questionnaire with how you input data, they'll reach out for clarifications or additional questions. So that's that human eye element that Angela was talking about that you don't get at a LegalZoom or other online platform that offers estate planning documents. You're getting that legal eye that's going to ask for clarifications, or really, if, let's say, for instance, you just appoint
Jordan.
You're a couple, you just appoint one another as agent, but then you say, I don't want any other agents. As an example, I'd reach out to you and say, well, what if something happens to both of you? You're both in an accident together. Who is going to be your power of attorney then? Who is going to help you then? So if you aren't familiar with it, you do have that person on the back end that will reach out and say, you really do need to appoint at least one other person here to make sure you get the most effect out of these documents that you can. So while you aren't meeting with attorneys, as Angela mentioned, one-on-one, there is a legal eye, there is a legal mind behind the documents, making sure that we get all the information you need so you can have the best documents possible to you. A real Real quick, one of the questions that we have gotten a lot of is, I live in blank state, can you work with us? The answer is yes. We've designed Pride planning to be available to all 50 states. So no matter where you reside, we have state-specific documents for you through Pride planning. And how do we do that? So we use state-specific powers of attorney. A lot of states require a specific form to be used for a power of attorney or an advanced directive. We use those forms wherever possible. We use state-specific statutory references. And where possible, we collaborate with legal professionals in other states and jurisdictions to make sure we have compliant documents on a state-by-state basis. So that is how we do that for all 50 states through Pride Planning. You'll see on our website, while the attorneys behind Pride Planning, which is Angela and myself, are only licensed in 4 states, which are Arizona, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Florida. We do collaborate with other professionals to ensure that we can bring state-by-state compliant documents to you all in all 50 states. So Pride Planning is a resource. It is a tool for all 50 states. We will soon be posting a more in-depth, frequently asked questions video and information on the website to answer that, and in addition to some other common questions that we've gotten through the website. So be sure to look out for that. But in the meantime, if there's any questions, there is always a human available at Pride Plans. You can email info@prideplans.com or me directly, tom@prideplans.com, and we will get back to you very quickly. A lot of people are surprised at how fast we respond to emails and inquiries, but we are reachable most of the time, maybe not in the wee hours of the morning, but most of the time generally, and we will get back to you as soon as we can with any questions or inquiries that you have. But most of the information you'll find on our website, how the process works, what to look out for, and everything else. It was nice meeting everybody.
Awesome. Awesome. That was perfect. Good job. All right. So we are going to segue right into the substance, the meat of it all. So what is marriage, right? What is marriage legally? Why do we want it? Why did we fight for it? So we've just talked a lot about estate planning, right? And it's very important that folks realize and understand the difference between the two. Marriage, it grants privileges and benefits, 1,138 state and federal privileges and benefits. But I'm accentuating the word privilege because they are just that. They are privileges, they are benefits. It is not power. We deserve it. They're 1,138. They're fiscally advantageous, fiscally significant, financially significant privileges. But that marriage, right? It's not, we went and did the thing because we're in love. But when we went and did the thing when we're in love, really, in not all countries. I never thought I'd agree with Rand Paul on anything, or he, me for that matter. But there we were in complete agreement making for bad TV on Newsmax because we weren't fighting. We're like, yeah. That if they wanted marriage to remain a religious institution, they should not have tied 1,138 state and federal privileges to it. Now, so again, why did we fight for it? To legitimize our families under the law, ourselves, our families, our relationship, not necessarily, families with children, but just our unit and whatever that looks like, to secure access to critical benefits, again, and privileges. And the biggest piece that so many people don't realize, we went from legal strangers in the eyes of the law to legal next of kin. And that's one of the biggest privileges, if you will, because so many default benefits automatically flow to your legal next of kin. And so prior to marriage equality, we could have been together 47 years, die, and everything to the estranged family that disowned you, when you came out, because of that legal next of kin piece wasn't there. So whenever I say the 1,138 privileges, without fail, someone asks me to list them all. Okay, I mean, one of them is if you're president, your spouse gets to ride on Air Force One for free. Like there are some very random that will never impact any of us, but these are the big five that really impact everyone and everyone. So we have immigration and citizenship, taxes and inheritance, and especially from an inheritance, there's only 6 states that have inheritance tax. I happen to live in one of them. So this inheritance means federal inheritance tax, like what Edie Windsor went through. And that was the Edie Windsor case that gave us the first round of marriage equality. But even in Pennsylvania, we're one of the 6 states, Pennsylvania and New Jersey, we have an inheritance tax, and we called it the gay tax. Every single one of my clients, even if they didn't hit the federal exemption of like 15 million, 11 million, or whatever it was at that time, everyone in Pennsylvania pays inheritance tax. 0 if it's a spouse, 5% if it's a child, these are rounding up, 10% if it's a sibling, and 15% for anyone else. So our partner in life would be taxed at the highest legal stranger route of 15%. And then we would do planning around that, getting life insurance on one another so that when the person died, cash would come in so you could use that cash and then pay the gay tax. Healthcare access, Social Security and pension benefits, this is huge. And then parentage and custody presumptions. So again, I kind of touched on this earlier, but marriage equals privilege, not power. So privilege is automatic spousal visitation to your person when they're in the hospital. That is one of the 1,138 state and federal rights tied to the institution of marriage, automatic visitation rights to your spouse. Inheritance rights, survivor benefits, right? But power is the legal authority to do something for someone when you want to do it. There is 0 power inherent in marriage. The only thing that gives you power is estate planning. And if I had to choose between privilege or power any day, I would take power time and again. And I got passionate around this topic 20 years ago with the Terry Schiavo case. This was a straight, married, cis couple. 20 years ago, no estate planning documents. Again, I just want to really drill home the difference between marriage and what's at stake with marriage and what we can do to protect ourselves through estate planning. So, and the fact that everybody needs this, gay or straight, everybody in this country needs these things, as was shown by the Terry Schiavo lesson. He was not her healthcare power of attorney. She did not have an advance directive. There was nothing in writing. He testified that their pillow talk at night was that she would haunt him until the day he died if she languished on life support. And then he went bankrupt after 8 years of litigation with her mother, and she languished on life support for 15 years, despite never wanting to be on life support for 15 minutes. So being married doesn't give you this power. Now, again, I said earlier, we deserve them both, right? But while one, instead of being scared, be prepared, the way estate planning has been our impenetrable, inseverable line of defense for decades. And like I said, everybody needs it. Married, straight, cis folks need it. But Terry Schiavo's marriage was recognized in all 195 countries around the world. Our marriages, even if everything were puppies and babies and roses in this country, which clearly it's not, but even if Hillary Clinton had won in 2016 and we lived in an alternate universe, one that I choose to spend most of my days, even if that were true, we're only considered married in 37 countries out of 195 that fly a flag. So being Canadian, having lived in China, having lived in Tanzania where it's illegal to be gay, I have a different perspective on our marriage recognition. It's not just about the country in which we live or the state in which we live, but we are only recognized as married in a fraction of the countries around the world. Okay. All right. This little troll from Kentucky. If this becomes the face that takes down marriage equality, I'm going to be mad. All right. So Kim Davis's challenge. As we all know, former Kentucky clerk Obergefell gets passed. We have marriage nationwide, and she's mad about it, and she refuses to issue marriage license post Obergefell going into effect. And so she filed a petition for cert on August 11th, just 8 days ago, and then claiming that Obergefell was egregiously wrong and violated her religious freedoms. So Obergefell in 2015, that happened, right? So in 2015, Obergefell gets passed. She refuses. She's put in jail for contempt because she continued to refuse. She was told multiple times. Lawsuits were filed by the couples that were denied licenses. One couple in particular never let it go and continued the fight. A jury verdict just a couple of years ago stating that she owes $100,000 in damages and $260,000 in attorney's fees. Just a few months ago, the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld that verdict and denied her a hearing, a retrial, or it's called a rehearing. And then a week ago or so, she filed the formal petition for cert to the Supreme Court. One of the big things, and I've said this, in videos and whatnot, I believe there's a low chance that Kim Davis's case will be taken by the Supreme Court. I think it's weak right now. We'll talk about the emphasis on the right now piece and why. But I don't believe if SCOTUS does take this case, then that really foreshadows we're done because this is a horrible case for them to take for several reasons. First and foremost, historically, almost always, there has to be a circuit split in order for the Supreme Court to take it. There's over, out of this 1% of petitions granted, let's go back. Out of the 1% of petitions granted, that's out of 8,000 or so petitions. So very, very, very few are taken. And so if the Supreme Court's going to take its time, it wants to act as a referee, if you will, as an arbiter, right? So everybody's fighting, and we got these 3 who think one thing and these 4 who think one thing. So we will tell you who's right. In this case, there is 0 court telling her she's right. Every step along the way, she's lost. Okay? Now, procedurally, and the holding itself, her case is really about, so the Supreme Court can only decide what's in front of it. Any court can only decide the issue in front of it. And her issue is that she doesn't want to have to pay the $100,000. She doesn't feel as though she should have been fined in her religious liberties in having to do it at all. And we'll talk more about that. That comes back. So that part of the religious liberty claim in the italics right now will come full circle at the end. But her issue and petition is not a direct test of marriage equality. The Supreme Court could do jurisprudential gymnastics and make it such because it's the Supreme Court, but I don't know that they want to do that. And so then we have the cert statistics, 1% of folks. So what could SCOTUS do? Deny cert, most likely, and they never deny it out loud. Like, we just won't know. So it's a lot of part of the anxiety is, there won't be a news cycle where you're like, she lost. You just won't know. We won't hear. Out of the 7,850 that, they can't send out a memo being like, no, thank you, we're not doing this. So we just won't ever hear. But so denying most likely, grant cert and use it as a vehicle to revisit Obergefell in full. And again, less likely because of what we talked about. Grant cert narrowly and maybe find some technical or First Amendment issue about her religious liberties. So grant cert, but focus on a very narrow part of her petition. And then what I have down here is what I'm going to talk about later, erosion versus overturning. Okay, I believe that Obergefell will be eroded over time as opposed to a big fell swoop of an overturn. And I'll talk about how I see that playing out. And then hold the case. And that very well could be. They just hold it. Now's not the right time. The Bostock case had 4 plaintiffs. The Supreme Court case that gave us employment discrimination protections, there were 4 plaintiffs. The Obergefell case, it wasn't just Jim Obergefell. There were multiple plaintiffs. So typically the Supreme Court likes to take multiple cases that hit on a lot of different things. And for Kim Davis, she was a clerk who didn't want to have to perform services for folks. Like, fine, you want to marry, but I don't want to have to be a part of it. And that is going on all over the country. So And then the language. Language matters. So Kim Davis's petition almost mirrors Dobbs. Very, very important. I've been saying ever since Dobbs was decided, which is a case that took down Roe, that the exact same legal analysis that takes down Obergefell will be the analysis in Roe. And they use the exact same words. So it's just telling. And again, I don't think it's her case that does it, but I do see how this is going down the pike and how it will happen. So egregiously wrong, deeply damaging, far outside any reasonable constitutional interpretation. So, what did this woman do in Syracuse? A judge refused to perform a same-sex marriage. What happened? Nothing. It's still happening, which is why Kim Davis is not irrelevant. Her case is not the right case per se, right? But it is happening. There was a grand jury investigation. She was asked to resign. She was asked to step down. Nothing has happened. She's still a judge in Syracuse. Red flags across red states. So that is the governor of Tennessee. And he passed a law that clerks and judges like Kim Davis and I forget what her name was. Judge Felicia Pitts Davis. So Kim Davis and Judge Davis passed a law saying, due to RFRA, Religious Freedom Restoration Act, if they don't feel comfortable doing it, if they don't believe in it, conscientious objectors, they don't have to do it. Okay, so I see that working its way up. There needs to be a lawsuit. There hasn't been, but that will work its way up and get to the Supreme Court. We've all heard of the state resolutions, Michigan, Iowa, other state resolutions calling for SCOTUS to overturn Obergefell, and then local officials refusing service. Again, that's more the Kim Davis. All of this setting the stage for future litigation, better litigation, as opposed to Kim Davis's. So what a lot of people don't realize is that the Supreme Court already took a massive swipe at marriage equality a year ago. A year ago. It was an immigration case of a straight couple, and they turned it into a same-sex marriage equality case. June of last year. I've been talking about this case for over a year now, but this is the precedent. You can't overturn something. So even if Kim Davis's petition for cert were granted and her case was great, what would they have in order to overturn it? Zero precedent. They set the precedent a year ago through this case. So this case involves an American citizen, Sandra, who had been trying to get permanent residency for her husband, Luis, and couldn't. He had a tattoo. They thought it was an M13 tattoo, and they denied him. And she is an employment discrimination attorney, so she has both money and access, and ultimately sued in order. MS-13 was the gang that they thought he was a part of. So he got stuck in El Salvador, couldn't get back. He had children who were born in this country with her. So they met, they married, and had natural born citizens in this country. And as of now, they both live in El Salvador because he was not allowed in. So from an immigration perspective, then the opinion itself, all right, so the bottom line, the whole opinion is the Constitution protects your right to marry, but not necessarily have a right to have your spouse live here. So this was the beginning of the Supreme Court. So when I mentioned those 1,138 state and federal rights, this is the beginning of the erosion of those. As opposed to a full fell swoop of overturning of Obergefell, we'll just slowly but surely, death by thousand cuts, take away the rights inherent in marriage. So Nunes, in my opinion, is the case that dismantles Obergefell. The majority used the history and tradition test that they did in Dobbs, that abortion has not been rooted in the history and tradition of the United States, that we can overturn it. Obergefell framed marriage as a bundle. that you get all the rights. But Muniz says, no, you can marry, but the rights to marriage could be limited to you. And then obviously single signals for future cases. The dissent. Oi, this is what I'm going to send you as additional reading. So the majority chose a very broad holding on marriage over a narrow one. Even Gorsuch, so there was the dissent, and then there was a majority. Gorsuch filed a concurring opinion. Shocking. He was appalled that the Supreme Court even took this case. He said, I 100% agree with the overall holding, but we never should have taken this case. The reason being, again, the Supreme Court can only answer what's in front of it, right? So in this case, she sued for lack of due process. You wouldn't allow my husband back into the country. You denied his citizenship, and you never told me why. They were guessing that it was his tattoo, but they didn't know why. And this actually all took place during the Obama administration, like the fight, the decision came down just last year. But and so then Obama agreed to share the file, tell them why. And it was that the tattoo and that they thought was MS-13, even though he was like a third grade teacher over there. Like, absolutely not. But so they got their reason. So there was no more due process violation. It was moot. And Gorsuch said, we never should have taken this case. The issue was moot. And you overstepped. You went too far. Obergefell rejected what, so these are quotes. Obergefell rejected what the majority does today as inconsistent with the approach this court has used in discussing the fundamental rights of marriage and intimacy. Same-sex couples may be forced to relocate to countries that do not recognize same-sex marriage, or even those that criminalize it. The burden will fall most heavily on LGBTQ folks who lack the ability to make a home in the non-citizen spouse's country. So this is truly the beginning. This is the foundation that then they're going to keep going back to and cite. So everything that we've just talked about, let me go back. Obergefell. So there's two lines of protection right now. Statutory decision and legal decision. So the decisional law is Obergefell, and the statutory protection is the Respect for Marriage Act. Okay, everything we've just talked about in the Supreme Court and all of that, that only impacts Obergefell. That won't impact the Respect for Marriage Act. But that's not to say the Respect for Marriage Act is strong and will protect us, but they're two different things. State level, and then the Respect for Marriage Act is purely federal. So the Respect for Marriage Act in the image there, what it was meant to do, repeal DOMA, it did, enshrine marriage equality for federal law purposes, and then provide additional marriage protections at the state level. So what the realities are is, and I post-election did a ton of research, Project 2025, the Respect for Marriage Act, and looked at how can this eviscerate that without actually repealing it, because they don't have the numbers to repeal the Respect for Marriage Act. So knowing that they always do whatever they want to do and somehow get there, even if it's, sort of a shady way, right? They always sort of get what they want to do. How does Project 2025 eviscerate the Respect for Marriage Act without formally overturning it? And what I came up with, and this was November 16th, declare two sexes in this country, male and female, which ended up happening on January 20th. Obviously, the folks most impacted on that day were trans, gender diverse, non-binary folks. But I saw how that would then eventually lead to married couples, that all federal benefits flow to a traditional family made up of a male and a female, right? So in other ways, RFRA, Religious Freedom Restoration Act, the easiest is all of the exemptions that the Respect for Marriage Act has inside of it. It passed within days, huge bipartisan support. The reason it passed within days with huge bipartisan support is it has a massive loophole of religious exemptions. And I think the whole next set of litigation that we're going to see is going to be all about religious freedom and religious exemptions. We haven't yet touched that as far as LGBTQ folks go, where Rick Santorum's First Amendment right to religious freedom begins and ends, and where our Fifth and 14th Amendment to be able to live and marry and be with whomever we want begins and ends, right? That hasn't been litigated yet. So, but weaknesses of the Respect for Marriage Act doesn't guarantee nationwide access to marriage licenses. It doesn't constitutionalize marriage equality. It's a statute which can be repealed if they have the numbers, right? And or find loopholes around it. And again, the broad religious exemptions. And then the one that I find most interesting, and I'm not quite sure how it's going to play out, but the federalism tensions, right? So the Respect for Marriage Act relies on the full faith and credit clause guaranteeing recognition across state lines. But then but if Georgia doesn't want to, then what? How far can the government go forcing a state to do a thing? Because what this whole issue started with was the federal government was telling states you have to recognize marriage equality. And then that, right? So now we have the Respect for Marriage Act, which ultimately does that very same thing. So again, I think there's going to be Religious Freedom Restoration Act lawsuits around that. Just going to have to see how it plays out. So how can Trump dismantle the Respect for Marriage Act? Ultimately, weaponizing the religious exemptions, narrow federal enforcement, just not enforcing it. The Respect for Marriage Act is something that the executive and the federal government needs to enforce in order to protect LGBTQ folks, right? Regulatory sabotage, setting up policies that are in conflict with it. Same thing, refusing to enforce it. And then that executive order that I told you about, declaring that all federal benefits bestowed upon married folks go to a man and a woman. And then with that, I wrote down some notes on that one. Because Trump can issue executive orders on anything. We just got that case that came down and said so. But technically, he can't issue an executive order that's against a law, which would be the Respect for Marriage Act. So how does he get around that? That's always what I'm looking at. We too often just look at, well, we have the Respect for Marriage Act. They're going to look for loopholes. So Trump could direct federal agencies to interpret spouse narrowly using the pre-Obergefell definition of marriage, which was man plus woman. Pre-Obergefell, just 10 years ago. Agencies could start denying benefits to LGBTQ couples, forcing them and then what would happen next? Immediate lawsuits, obviously. So civil rights groups would sue, and then the circuits would be split. And then it would go up to the Supreme Court, and then we would see how they decide on it post Munez case. So, all right, again, the erosion of marriage equality, from my opinion, as opposed to overturning. So we have the Munez case, in my opinion, the first one, not Davis, but Munez is the first Supreme Court precedent starting to parse out the rights of marriage. You have the right to marry, but you don't necessarily have the right to cohabitate with your spouse. And it's also just ironic. Amy Coney Barrett wrote this opinion, and a lot of people don't know, but she's adopted all of her children from around the world. And what if we told her the right to parentage, everyone has the right to be a parent, but you don't necessarily have the right to live with your children. We're going to take those away from you. Right? So the hypocrisy in this decision. But so that's the very first cut. Then we have state legislation working its way up that I think will also turn into legislation, turn into lawsuits. Tennessee telling civil servants that they don't have to marry LGBTQ folks. And then we have lower courts, and then a future SCOTUS case, even if Davis is not the case not taken, right? But if after all of this we revisit marriage equality and find out that we can also parse out her religious freedom, Kim Davis, right? That Angela, have the right to get married, but I don't have a right to dictate who does it. So if I show up and Kim Davis is there, I do have the right to marry, but I don't get to dictate who does it. Now, in places like Philadelphia, San Fran, New York, Orlando, big cities, not a big deal. Kim Davis was like the only clerk in her town. I mean, the realities of the religious exemption piece and parsing out again the rights inherent in marriage, um, it's a huge slippery slope. And then when all comes full circle, Kim Davis could no longer be a lawbreaker and be vindicated. But I don't think now. I think a lot has to happen. But depending on how it all plays out, I had to bring Devil Wears Prada into it because I just had to. So the law moves at a glacial pace, by all means. But you don't have to. So what can you do? Fortify you, your family, your chosen family, protect yourself, do things like this, be in community with like-minded folks, be visible, stay loud, engage politically, please, um, and educate people. Tell people about the Muniz case. I've been trying to. Nobody knows about it. It was a random immigration case of a straight couple. Buried in it was the foundation of anti-LGBTQ marriage equality. Okay, so and obviously tell others anything that you learn here. All right. So marriage equality. Overturning Obergefell will not happen overnight, but the erosion is underway, in my opinion. The legal language in Kim Davis's petition is scary enough. The fact that the legal precedent has been set, they know the language to use. They're using Dobbs, cut, paste, replace, and using all the same legal basis. And then state level religious freedom laws, Tennessee, Respect for Marriage Act is important, but has broad religious exemptions, and Trump's CO powers could come to bite us. I always say that our marriage is like a steak knife. So this is your marriage, and it's a knife, not a pen. So I'm asking you to imagine a lot of things. So this is a steak knife, and there are 1,138 state or serrated edges to it that represent your state and federal rights. If we lose the federal ones, we lose the silver. And then it'll depend where you live. Georgia, Florida, Colorado, New York, right? And so what we see happening, no one can take away your knife. If it goes from a steak knife to a butter knife, you still have a knife. But if you've ever tried to cut a filet mignon with a butter knife, it's just not very pretty. So at the end of the day, that's what they're doing. They're not, I get the question asked so many times, can they take away my marriage? Can they overturn my marriage? And the answer is no. But they can nullify the rights associated with it. Just today, Hillary Clinton came out. SCOTUS will do to gay marriage what they did to abortion. All right, let's do it. Q&A. Hold on, let's back up. Let's take this down. There we go. All right. Jen, are you going to help me with questions?
I am. They're all texted to you, but I can go through them again if you need.
All right. So I'll just take these in order, and then when we get through these, then we can do hands and whatnot. You're gonna have to stop texting me, Generous. I'm gonna keep going to the bottom. All right. Recently married in Maine and live in New Hampshire. My wife has access to law firms as part of her work benefits. We have access to a similar online questionnaire. Then it puts together the cookie cutter documents. My question is, how do we make sure that our documents are what they need to be? Are all lawyers obligated to make sure? Yeah, no. So, those work benefits, you'll get the standard 5 documents that traditional, um, you know, married folks get at the end of the day. The power of attorney, the healthcare power of attorney, living will, a will, last will and testament, and maybe the revocable trust, depending on your work benefit. But they won't be drafted queer competently. There's a definition of spouse that I came up with post-election that, in my opinion, makes it safe for my clients to continue to put the qualifier spouse in front of the name, right? So I, Angela, but instead like my spouse, Angela. And so there was a lot of discourse, a lot of dialogue on, we should take all that out. No qualifier whatsoever. Not husband, husband, not wife, wife, not spouse. I agreed with the genderized version, but I didn't agree with the spousal version. And so I came up with a definition that more of an affirmation, I would say, than a definition, but stating clearly that we use this term because, as of the laws in effect at the time in the United States, upon signing these documents, this was in fact the legal relationship. It's about a paragraph. And then there are, get near me, yeah, deal. Travel documents that like a traditional estate planning attorney wouldn't know about the fact that our marriages are only considered legal in 37 countries out of 195 that fly a flag, right? And so pre-marriage equality, my clients kept this on their purse wallet. Again, one of the 1,138 state and federal rights tied to marriage is automatic visitation rights to your spouse. If you're somewhere where that's not recognized or it's challenged, you don't have that. So pre-marriage equality, my clients kept this on their person wallet. Post-marriage equality, passports. Post Obergefell, depending on where you live, could be, Georgia back on your person, Pennsylvania more like your glove box, right? You fly somewhere and you have a layover in Atlanta, I'm still in Georgia, right? So domestically, or I drive from Wilton Manors up to P-Town, and I go through states every which way where marriage equality is not recognized. So this is super important. We shrink it down, laminate it. This is the only document where I remove the mention of spouse, because if you're pulling this out, clearly you're in a hostile situation, right? And it may be illegal to be gay where you are. So I don't want to out you by virtue of this. So all to answer the question, you'll get protections. You'll have the documents, as those lawyers aren't obligated to know all of these things, and provide those documents to you. They'll provide you what they know. Yes, I do support second parent adoptions. By support, I don't know if you mean I do them or I recommend them. I highly recommend them. It's the only way to fully, form the family unit, if you will. So confirmatory adoption, second parent adoption, kinship adoption, whatever it's called in your state, 100% do it, please. As far as support them, I love them because it's the only time that judges, lawyers, and clients are happy together in a courtroom. So and taking pictures and holding babies. So I absolutely love doing them, and you should absolutely get it done. It does suck, while estate planning, everyone needs it, so a lot of my clients come to me eyebrows down, and I'm like, eyebrows up. You needed this. With this, I understand that if the laws were different and more fair, that, we shouldn't have to, but we do. So please do. And for my clients, I include estate planning with that process. So do collab with other attorneys that believe and don't want, yeah, don't want the dinero going to a bigot. Exactly. So yes, it's very important to know who you're working with. They may or may not be, queer competent as far as their documents, but still inclusive and care about the LGBTQ community. I'm going to be working with the American Bar Association to create a webinar like this but to only lawyers, talking to them about the 9 documents, about the things that we deal with, about the struggles, so that, a lawyer in a small town in Iowa who wants to help can do so more competently than just like feeling our pain kind of thing, right? So yes, definitely try to find, determine who you're working with. Um, okay, if there's going to be there, I have a ton of immigration questions that came in. And I have one of the best immigration attorneys in the country who he now regrets having gone to college with me because I'm making him answer all of your questions. But he has answered them all so far. Ricky Palladino is his name, and it's a law firm in Philadelphia. Immigration is a federal thing, doesn't matter where you are in the country. Highly, highly recommend him. So any of these immigration questions, I'm going to hold on um, and then have Ricky assess. So over the weekend I got, I think, 9 or 10 questions back, and then we sent it directly to those people who asked. I know just enough to be dangerous. Like I said, for the last 17 years, he's who I've been using for my immigration stuff. Um, Question about creating a trust. My wife, this one may or may not be immigration. My wife is a citizen. I'm from Germany here on a green card. Our baby is 14 months, and my wife is fighting stage 4 cancer. I'm very sorry. Our situation is quite complex, and we're trying to figure out if how we can create a trust. Any advice? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Um, I highly recommend it. In the September 9th webinar that we do, I'll go through all of these documents, in more detail, but you absolutely, especially if you know that there's a potential life-threatening illness that you have, getting everything together in a probate avoidance tool now would be her being your wife being here on a green card doesn't change what I said in any way, shape, or form. My wife has been pursuing citizenship. I will get that over to Ricky. Any recommendations for best path for non-birth parent securing rights? My name is on the birth certificate. We tried to go the step parent adoption route, which is an option for second parents here in Florida. However, we were denied that option in court, with the judge saying, okay. Um, well, that's crazy because the birth certificate is not enough. And you can't go anywhere other than the county in which you live. So you're just stuck with this lawyer who either wants to deny you that path or just doesn't know um, the process. But as far some things that I do for my clients while they're pre-adoption, and there are pre-birth orders. Some states like New York have really relaxed the issue, and you don't have to go the adoption route. You can file a petition. Adoption will always be the most protective route, but some states have allowed easier routes for you to go to secure that parental. So adoption is a state specific practice area, but some things that you can do is guardianship documents, and ways in which, and again, estate planning for sure, because without having a legal relationship to that child, if you passed away, from an inheritance perspective, so making sure that that child is your beneficiary. West Virginia passed a statute in 2000 restricting marriage, effectively banning same-sex marriage. Attempts to codify the ban were defeated since 2014. The Supreme Court decision to not consider the appeal made same-sex marriage legal in West Virginia. With the background, exactly, all of the bans that are currently in effect that did not get ultimately defeated would automatically, just same thing that happened to abortion, right? Overnight, however many states automatically, now you couldn't get an abortion there. So if you live in a state that had a ban that was not defeated between when Obergefell was decided and now, if Obergefell goes away, that ban is still there. It was just hiding behind Obergefell. So if Obergefell falls, and that's what I'm staring at, is that. Okay. we completed the 9 documents, but we're concerned about loss of health insurance when it's repealed. We live in PA. We will still be considered domestic partners and therefore be eligible. Will we still be considered domestic partners and therefore be eligible for health insurance benefits as spouses? So with that one, there's really no way of, so some folks have asked me that question and they work for the federal government. Some folks have asked me that question, they work for a state government. Other folks ask me that question, they work for a company. How this is all going to roll out, in my opinion, really depends on who you work for and where that benefit is coming from. I believe if you work for the federal government, you're screwed, right? I mean, we've seen them absolutely be willing to take away any and all rights from trans active military folks, right? So on a state level, it depends. And then companies, prior to marriage equality, not just companies, but also states had domestic partnership registries, cities had domestic partnership registries or life partnership registries. They've little by little gone away. Some have removed them, some have opened them up to straight cis folks. Because why does everyone have to get married? What if you just don't want to get married in the world politically, right? But you live here. So some municipalities and states, when marriage hit, they didn't take them away. They actually opened them up to everyone. So this, depending on where you are in Pennsylvania, could also impact that. Whether you work for a W-2 company, companies are going to have to step up if and when this happens. I just saw the pension piece, same thing. And so yeah, it really depends where the benefit is coming from. As far as companies, though, I do see them stepping up like they did pre-marriage equality. There were 328, I think the number is very high, of the Fortune 500 companies who wrote amicus briefs in support of marriage equality. Because if you're at Google and you have employees in all 50 states, and then Pennsylvania doesn't have marriage equality, so those two are domestic partners there. Those people are married. Those people are domestic partners. So it was, it behooved them to get marriage equality so that if nothing else, things would be easy for their books, right? So if they want to retain good employees, in my opinion, they will, in fact, provide these benefits for folks and step up more so than the state in which you live. Yeah, I kind of answered this during the presentation, but when would SCOTUS have to accept her case? / when will we know for sure? We won't. We won't. They don't have to tell us. They could hold it. They could wait for Munez to deal with a couple of things, and then like 4 years from now, and so there is no, and we won't hear. Like I said, there won't be a big news cycle about it. When you do address questions outside of those FAQs on prideplans.com, can you share those with us? That we'll need to get first married at City Hall, then this step in PA. Do we also do a prenup, as it seems not included in the packages? Yeah. So prenup is its own thing. I highly recommend prenups, whether you're fast forwarding a marriage or not. But especially if you're fast forwarding a marriage and you're getting married at a time when you wouldn't otherwise because of this, right? Do so safely with a prenup. But premarital agreements, that, I always tell my clients when we meet about prenups, there is something in writing that we're going to read if you get divorced. And it's called the divorce code. This person was in Pennsylvania. So it's called the divorce code of Pennsylvania. The divorce code of Pennsylvania is meant for everyone in Pennsylvania, therefore meant for no one. Right? So what a prenup is instead of reading something that is not meant for you to, is you to put together the divorce code for you. By you, for you. At the end of the day, we're going to be reading something. Be empowered and co-collaborate and put together the manual. If we had never played a game, it's game night at my house, Friday night, and we're going to play a game, hot off the presses, never been played before. We're the first ones to ever play it. What's the first thing that we're going to do? We're going to read the rule book. You two have never done this thing called marriage together. Write your own rule book, right? We're mad about cell phone contract breakage fees of $350, but yet we'll enter into this permanent forever contract with a massive five-figure breakage fee, right? And so to me, prenups make absolute, and you know, LGBTQ folks and the national marrying age right now, nationwide, gay, straight, whatever, is 29 for women, 31 for men. We have things as we're getting married. We have a home. We have 401ks. Long gone are the days of, the first pot and pan that we got was at the engagement party. So I'm a huge fan of prenups. They're not a part of any package because they're so particular. I have a 17-point checklist that I go over with my client. 13 apply to everyone. Not all 17 apply. You may not be in a polyamorous or a polycule relationship. You may not have children. You may not be life partners and business partners, right? So not all 17 apply, 13 definitely do. And it's a very sort of robust, exhaustive document. But if the divorce ever happens, you'll be very glad that you spent the time on it. And I also allow things like, it's not enforceable, but it's cute. And so I allow it, even though lawyers aren't supposed to put things that may not be enforceable in a contract. But several months ago, these two guys, if one of them throws in the towel and says, I'm done, either of them, whatever, even if it's February, their happy place is P-Town, even if it's February, that they go to P-Town and get everybody out of their ear, no phones, no nothing, no chatter, no friend, he's, an a-hole, all the thing, nope, nobody, just the two of them, and for a week talk about how they got there. Now, can I force? Can the one guy call the cops and make the other guy go to P-Town? No. But hopefully, if they read that, they remember where they were in life when they decided to put that in. Hold on, I think I was. What about two Americans get married in another country, Australia? Yeah. So place of celebration versus place of residence. So if you've got married internationally, ultimately place of residence versus place of celebration. Right now, the federal government, post-marriage equality, Obama, we realized and saw that the federal government, every agency defined marriage differently. Nobody knew this. It wasn't until we got marriage equality and it all started to roll out that we were like, whoa. And the biggest issue and how we found out was the active military and then the Department of Veteran Affairs. Active military said place of celebration. That's how they defined it. The Department of Veteran Affairs said place of residency. So for that couple that got married in Australia, since it's legal in Australia, they would have, spousal benefits while active in the military because they celebrated their marriage in Australia and the place of celebration is their policy. Then the woman retired and showed up at the Department of Veteran Affairs and the spouse lost all of her spousal benefits. And they were like, you mean I had them yesterday, but now because I'm retired, I don't? Because that's place of celebration because they lived in Kentucky. So place of celebration, but now I live in Kentucky. My place of residence doesn't recognize marriage equality. So, and she'd already retired. There was nothing that could be done. So Obama said, every agency, executive order, every agency must use place of celebration. And I see that potentially getting turned back because obviously everyone using place of celebration helps us. Otherwise not, or else you have place of residency and then you have the Kentucky folks, the Georgia folks, the Florida folks. So again, I don't know. If marriage equality is enshrined in California Constitution, will it be? No. So federal is federal, state is state. So again, if this is your marriage, the silver is federal, but you will never, no matter what happens, lose the orange if it's codified in law in your state. New Jersey is really close here, right? California is about to. So, in Pennsylvania, we have the Whitewood Supreme Court case. A lot would have to happen. A lot. We would have a few years advance notice if the Whitewood case, if the Pennsylvania Supreme Court were to overturn that. And there's moves right now in Pennsylvania trying to codify it into law as well. A lot of the good states, the haven states, I think we'll start seeing where there's only a handful right now that have it codified in response to what just happened. The states will do that. If marriage rights are annulled, can they retrospectively take away green card citizenship? So no, one of the answers that he gave, because I read them, no one's citizenship being taken away, right? Even the Muniz case, he was not yet a citizen. So very important distinction. But any and all immigration questions, keep them coming because they are so specific to you, sometimes the country, what type of visa, like, and again, that's Ricky Palladino. He's awesome and highly, highly recommend him. For younger couples who are hoping to get married in the future, what are the steps they can take to protect themselves now? The estate planning documents. I mean, I have 24-year-old folks renting a 300 square foot apartment coming and getting those documents. These documents are what we've been using to recreate a bond for decades, long before we had marriage equality. And like I said, for 17 years, even post marriage equality, I treat all my married couples as though they're unmarried because globally, you're only considered married in a fraction of the countries. So if I didn't do all these additional things, then when you travel or you're somewhere where it's not recognized, right, then you're in danger. So without fail, and I have some folks, we're going to get married next year. Should we do it now? Yeah, it's an easy update to remove domestic partner and add the spousal language and benefit, or definition rather. So just as LGBTQ folks in the world, having these documents is super powerful. Like post-election, I even, as a marginalized community, right, as well. Post-election, I did a lot of ICE workshops for restaurant owners and doing, for undocumented employees. What did we give them? Estate planning documents to protect them. Durable powers of attorney. If they got detained and disappeared for 9 months, who's paying their mortgage? They come out, they're foreclosed upon, their lease is terminated, their stuff is thrown away, right? So some of these documents are helpful any marginalized community. People think estate planning, they think Vanderbilt, Carnegie, don't, right? Estate, I don't have an estate, you don't need to. Then most estate planning attorneys only care about and concern themselves with death and disability. All of my documents are about living. How to live more seamlessly as a marginalized community. We will plan for, shocker, spoiler alert, we're all going to die. It's going to happen. And you don't have to work at it. It'll just happen. But what is hard is living in this country as a marginalized community. Okay. So I recommend anyone at any point, when is the best time? Yesterday. Right. Let me see. Are there's more questions coming in? Okay. I was like, who's texting me? I'm busy. It's Jen with questions. um, uh, okay. Um, what legal documents do you advise gay married couples get? So everyone who registered for this, we put together a one-pager cheat sheet of those. So we'll add that to it. And again, come on September 9th, 6:30 p.m., right? So it's not the Legal Queer-Nay, the next one. Legal Queer-Nay is September 2nd and then September 16th. This is its own thing for Pride planning, September 9th, but I will do a deep dive in all of them. But between now and then, we'll get you that one pager that we put together. If federal benefits are removed, how would the best way to go about fighting that? Yeah. So depending on how it happens, right? So let's say it's one of the executive order ways that he went that path. This fits as a class. So just like the birthright citizenship attack, even though the Supreme Court said that lower courts can't tell Trump he can't do what he wants to do, that only they can tell him that he can or cannot do whatever, unless it's an issue that impacts the entire country. And this would be that. So it would easily certify as a class, and the executive order would have to cease pending litigation. If someone is planning their wedding for the fall, do they need to wait until legal? No. Yep, I just addressed that now. And then let the dust settle after the wedding and then update, post. I mean, the fall, that's in like 3 months. I mean, as an estate planning attorney, you could die tomorrow, right? In Philadelphia, we have SEPTA buses. They're very, very scary buses. So you never know what could happen. But if it's like this fall, in a month and a half, 2 months, and I wouldn't want you worrying about this leading into your wedding day. So I wouldn't say no. I would say it's up to your threshold for safety with that. And yes, we can work with folks in Maryland. So we have co-counsel in Maryland. So Pride Plans, the online automated, is in all 50 states. Me personally, as a lawyer, as a law firm, I have to have a co-counsel relationship with a licensed attorney in your state to then be able to work with you. So, but yeah. And then, what is the optimist? I love this. Maybe raise your hand, whoever asked this. What is the optimist's view of fighting against this? Um, so was that you, Thomas?
No, it was not. I had another question.
Okay. That would have been funny. So I am a forever optimist. Like, I turn lemons into lemonade whenever I can. And for me, the lemonade of all the folks that I've been meeting with post-election has been, you needed this anyways. Everybody needs this, right? And then they start telling me about their life story, about, maybe a hostile family member and the way we can protect them around that, or super religious family, how we can protect them from that. A sister that they really want to take care of but has money management problems, and how we can take care of that, right? Like, then we start talking, and then all of a sudden it's like their eyebrows are going up and up and up, and it's like, it should be called life planning instead of estate planning. And maybe less people would be turned off. So, but to fight against this, it's an uphill battle. I do believe, the Martin Luther King quote, the moral arc of justice bends long. Like, we're going to not just survive, thrive, and get through this, but it may be a generational thing. I do believe this was a demarcation point in United States history. I don't think it's something that the next election fixes. And so yeah, so I think I can be tempered and realistic, and still at every step of the way look for the lemonade about whatever it is that's going on. But I don't, so hope I answered that. Really good question. We've been together 34 years. Congratulations. And married since 2013. What documents should we have to protect us? We're in Florida. All the same 9 documents. And we will moving to a blue city or state, in a blue state, afford more legal. Oh, I see what you're saying. We'll moving to a blue city inside of a blue state and afford, yes. So like I said, federal protections and/or benefits, state, and then municipality. Philadelphia, well, now we're in a red state, but when we were a blue city and a blue state, Philadelphia for 8 or 9 years in a row, I think, was HRC's #1 rated city in the country, tied 8 ways with other cities like New York and San Fran and Portland and other cities. So, we've had a life partnership registry in Philadelphia since 1996. And we are one of the cities that, when marriage equality hit, we made it gender neutral. Anybody who just doesn't want to get married, right? So you're the city in which you live. And I did a couple videos on that where people are like, do I need to move? And it's like, there's privilege in that. There's massive privilege in just being able to say, I'm going to up and move, to another country, let alone another state, let alone so much privilege in that. And so many of us don't have that. And then the second piece, like the two things that if you can control in any way, shape, or form, if you're lucky enough to have the privilege to control these two things, do so. And that is where you live and who you work for. That is like 2/3 of our life, other than when we're in our home. And if either of those things hurt you energetically, right, or even physically, right, depresses you, causes you mental health issues because you're not out at work and can't, and all of the things. So, but there's massive privilege in being able to change those two things. Very few people can. If we weren't already married, just to be clear, in California, we should get the 9 documents. Yes. Yep. Everybody in this country needs those. Well, every LGBTQ person needs those 9 documents. Straight folks, I don't do all 9 for them, right? Again, Terry Schiavo's marriage is considered legal in all 195 countries. So due to marriage equality, there are additional documents that we protect against. We also use some of the documents differently than straight people use them. The durable power of attorney. Most estate planning attorneys give their clients 1 DPOA each. I give my clients 3 each because I want you to be able to use them. Again, most estate planning attorneys only care about death and disability. We may die never becoming disabled, but from a traditional estate planning attorney, you'll get your 1 DPOA. The durable power of attorney is your license to be able to do anything for your partner, as your partner, as if your partner were personally present, in your sole discretion. Literally duplicating yourself, creating another you. Massively, massively powerful document. So I give us 3. Also because a lot of banks sometimes will keep an original for their file for an audit. A title company will absolutely keep an original for their audit. And so that's why I give us 3. And you have the 1 for potential incapacity, 2 to use in life, and then go from there. So everybody needs these. We need a few more. And creatively, we found ways to use the exact same documents that straight people use, but we use them in a different way. Okay, but everybody in this country, again, the Terry Schiavo case 20 years ago, straight married couple, had no power for and over one another. My fiance is pregnant, yay! And we're expecting. We want to get married before the baby comes in. We live in DC. Are there any other things? Yeah, so I do what's called a pre-birth guardianship document. And so you can look into that there. And so it's basically, even if you were your partner's healthcare power of attorney, if something happened to her in childbirth, you are not in any way legally related to that child. And so to make healthcare decisions for her that would negatively impact the child, you may not be allowed to. And so having her appoint you the guardian of her unborn child. And so now you have a legal connection to both. And then on birthday, when the baby's born, then we send them a post-birth guardianship doc, covering them from birthday through adoption day. So those 2 special documents for my clients that are both doing adoption and estate planning. Otherwise, it's all the same stuff. We're married in Georgia and adopted 2 children from Florida. I'm the second parent. Will they be taken away from me? Should we? No. So an adoption decree is a court order. It cannot be severed. It cannot be in any way undone. Now, as far as should you start immigrating out of the country, that is a personal choice. But as far as them being taken away from you when you've already adopted them. But I mean, again, pre-marriage equality, there were, over a dozen states where it was illegal to adopt, including Florida, when Rosie O'Donnell, started her family cruise, leaving the port purposely in a state where she couldn't adopt her kids, did a massive family cruise and would leave every quarter. just as a big F you to Florida. So, again, there's a timeline on like when this happens and then rights being taken away, one of which would absolutely be the, depending on where you live, the ability to adopt. What is it that you're holding for travel? I call it a hospital visitation authorization form. So it's, not just for travel if you are local and, again, like pre-marriage equality, my clients kept it on their person purse wallet, right? But it's one of the 1,138 state and federal privileges tied to marriage is automatic visitation rights to your spouse in a hospital. If you are somewhere where that is not recognized, you don't have that automatic right. So this is a mini contract that says, I'm pass and go. I'm collecting my $200 and put me on boardwalk. I'm going in that room. All right. Now I also add HIPAA here. So you're allowed in the room. They have to talk to you, but now you have no power. So it's great to get this done, but uploading them to yourself in the cloud and having access to them. No one's going to have the packet of documents in a car accident. Okay, so great, hashtag adulting, check. You got this done, but then like actually having access to them when you need them. Can they revoke second parent adoption with this? Well, yes. So can they adopt second parent adoption with this ruling? Yes. The ability to, but not if you already have. Are these documents helpful for couples who are lifetime committed but don't plan to be legally married? Absolutely. Even more so. So again, these 1,138 state and federal rights tied to the institution of marriage, one of which is automatic visitation rights to the spouse. You don't have that. I'm not legally married. If something happened to me, my legal next of kin would kick in unless I had documents that said otherwise. Children, if I had them, parents, if alive, if not siblings. Is that who you want making health care decisions for you when you are in a long-term committed relationship? Like I had a friend of mine, she's straight, she was in a long-term committed relationship for 17 years. She's like, I guess I'm kind of gay in that way. And I'm like, this is long before marriage equality. And I'm like, yes, because, you're not married. You're never going to get married. You absolutely need these documents to tie that legal bond between you. Right? So absolutely. Can someone do a second parent adoption on their own? Or do they always have to have an outsource, or do they have to outsource it to an attorney? Nope, you can absolutely do it on your own. And depending on the state in which you live in, it may be easier or harder. Same thing with name changes. You can absolutely do that on your own. Don't need a lawyer. So, yeah. And then is it possible for them to revoke citizenship for a naturalized citizen? No. And do you have one in Oklahoma? Oh, I think you're referring to co-counsel. Another question, if you work with folks in California, another question, do you co-counsel in Minnesota or what other states in case we need help that we can't in our own states? Also question for Oklahoma, West Virginia, who do you know, New Mexico? So what we'll do when we send out the email, we'll send a list of states so we don't go through, all of that. And even if I don't have a co-counsel in the state in which you're in, my goal is by the end of the year to have co-counsel partnerships in all 50 states. So if you're willing to wait a couple weeks while I figure it out, I would love that. There's a couple states that have been hard for me to find anyone. I mean, just some really nasty responses from lawyers at even the suggestion of doing LGBTQ stuff, which just makes me more passionate, even more, to help folks. So, will there be a replay? Yes. Anyone who didn't show up will get it as long as you registered. You'll be getting all the materials that we're talking about. Let's see. What benefits will I get from marriage that I can't get from paperwork? There was that one slide that I went over, like the 5 biggies right? So there's the 1,138, but then there's the five main biggies. Social Security survivor benefits, inheritance rights, health insurance rights, um, and one of the biggest, I would say, a lot of the and immigration, bankruptcy. There's a whole bunch, but one of the biggest, in my opinion, we feel as we get older, right? Like, and Trump is doing away with Medicaid and Social Security anyways, but as I'm on the Pennsylvania Bar Association's Elder Law Council and talking about what marriage equality means to, by 2030, the entire baby boomer generation will be 65 plus. In 5 years, the entire baby boomer generation will be 65 plus. There's a lot of LGBTQ folks in there. We're going to start getting old. We're going to need elder law. I've been talking about estate planning, not elder law planning. But how do you shelter your assets from the government so they don't take everything? Being married is the number one shelter for that. So there's, a good way to think of it is if the government has a financial chart for something, it probably involves marriage, right? If you've seen all the charts, right? Like your Roth contribution, single, married. HSA contribution, single, married. Retirement contribution, single, married. And capital gains exemption, single, married. If there's a financial thing, they want to know which you are, and it's always better if you're married. Just is what it is. Okay. Let's see. How can we get an appointment with you to modify existing docs? Just email me. If they're, may not be my client. Yeah, same thing. But if you are a client, obviously you know me, so email me. But if you already have documents and you want them modified, same thing. We'll just take what you have. A lot of folks don't have a revocable living trust. I always recommend that. And so, there's just a lot that, and I poke my clients if I don't talk to them in between, every 3 years or so, because I'm wonderful, but I'm usually not the first person they think to update with their life. So a poke, right? Like it's called estate planning, ing, because plans are meant to change, right? And so having a modification after you set up the initial set of documents is absolutely normal. Do you suggest if we plan to be married in the future to draft a prenup, then city hall, then estate planning? Yes, that is the order that I would do it in. Prenup first, get married, and then estate planning. Because with the prenup, and it depends on whether or not you're going to use a lawyer for the prenup. So, when I work with folks because the prenup obviously has to predate City Hall, right? When I work with my folks on a prenup, we then work on the prenup together, and then they go get married, then they let the dust settle, and then the person that I represented, because you can only represent one person in a prenup, then signs a conflict waiver, allowing me to do joint representation and then represent the unit in their joint estate planning. So just depends if you're going to use a lawyer on the prenup piece, but either way, prenup must come first, then marriage, and assuming this is all like in a fairly short period of time, then the estate planning documents, as opposed to getting the estate planning documents now and updating them in 3 to 4 months. Do you recommend getting married in a state that has laws protecting marriage equality? We live in PA, in a city that recognizes civil unions, and we're married in Philadelphia, which also recognizes, but should we get married in New Jersey? So I am not recommending, and I will repeat this a couple of times. If you live in a red state, you live in a blue state, just in a different part of it, or red state, Pennsylvania, but we have the Supreme Court case. So even if Obergefell falls, our Supreme Court case in Pennsylvania stands. But if you live in a red state, I had a meeting last night with a couple who were just about to do this, live in Ohio, and they were going to get married elsewhere. I do not recommend that. If you live in a red state, you're going to get married in your red state. This is what happened the first wave of a marriage equality, where my clients got locked in their nuptials. They couldn't get out of them. Okay, because you live in Ohio, this couple, but you come to Philly to get married, then go back to Ohio, but then Ohio doesn't recognize marriage equality. How do you get divorced if you're in a state that doesn't think you're married? And so nobody could get divorced. I had people who had been separate and apart for 10 years and had new partners, not spouses because they were married, they were wedlocked. But they had new partners, they adopted a child, they like moved on. On the day of marriage equality, I actually submitted like 14 divorces of clients of mine that were like, yay, you can get us divorced. Like they had come full circle, become friends again. I'll never forget these two guys. I had them, one on the work phone, one on my cell phone. They're like, are you going to get us divorced? I'm like, yeah, the day's finally come. On the day of marriage equality, we're celebrating being able to get divorced. So be careful. We don't know what we're entering into. And so the more hodgepodge you get now, you're then stuck with that. So I just counsel, we've already seen it before. I had a client who even went to Massachusetts and got, or maybe it was Vermont, but one of them has a 6-month residency requirement in order for you to file a divorce. So they got a 6-month lease and paid for the 6 months of the lease and then filed for divorce in Massachusetts. So just be careful. And if you have a red state, so that Ohio marriage certificate, if they want to leave and come to Pennsylvania, we'll recognize it. So there's no benefit. There's only a potential downfall if you do that. It was my attorney here in Iowa that recommended my spouse and I get married. Is it possible to get the date on when you refer him to the seminar you mentioned? Yes. Well, clarify whether you mean the American Bar Association one that I'm going to be doing for lawyers in particular or the one on September 9th. But yes, that's funny because I always use an Iowa lawyer as like this person that doesn't exist in my head. And now there's your Iowa lawyer. So I would love to meet this person that I've been talking about that I never met. So if it's the lawyer one, just when I send out my contact information, when we send the email, reply with his contact information, and I'll do that. Regarding second parent adoption, how long do you typically have to live in a given state before being able to file? It's not like divorce, as long as you have a a valid address, like you actually live in that state. And yes, it will apply forever, even internationally. That is forever your child, as if they came out of your body or, all the things. So, and as far as traveling with, so we have this travel document. For my parents, I also shrink down the adoption decree for travel. Okay, so I have a travel binder and documents that I suggest that you have. Doesn't a will protect as much as a trust if we are listing our spouses as beneficiary on all deeds, investments, and banking accounts, including joint tenants with right of survivorship? So I'll get into this in depth on the 9-9 one, but no. The revocable trust has been our marriage protection, marriage recreation tool for decades. A marriage recreation tool. Your assets will get to your spouse through the will, for sure, right? But is that the best avenue, especially deeds, real estate, property? Separate from LGBTQ issues, real estate is the #1 trigger for probate. So on the 9-9 workshop, we'll talk just as much about estate planning as LGBTQ issues inherent in estate planning. But deeds in particular, there's no way for real estate to avoid the probate process other than with a revocable trust. And it plays our probate avoidance tool and our marriage recreation tool. We live in Utah and have been told that we cannot do a second parent adoption as we're both on the birth certificate and married. And I've heard that a couple of times in someone else in Florida, but I know in Florida of folks who have. So when you get my contact information, reach out. I do have co-counsel there. Anything having to do with adoptions, name changes, I can't work with you on in these other states, I refer those to the co-counsel because they have to file in court and show up to court and do all these things that obviously I'm not going to do. But we have a great contact in Utah, so reach out to me. If we'd like to do this, but you don't live in one of the states you serve, do you have a list of partner attorneys? So one of two things. So for the states in which I'm not licensed in, I have co-counsel partnership agreements with licensed attorneys that allow me then together to work with folks in those states. If it's one that I'm not, then I may have a contact for you in that state depending. So again, for everyone, I just say reach out, let me know, and we'll sort of take it from there. All right, I hit them all, Jen. Oh, well, let's do some hands.
Hang on,
I feel like these.
I have a whole lot more to send.
All right, well, Roxanne's been waiting a long time.
Yep.
Go ahead, Roxanne.
Since Social Security is a federal agency and also for retired federal agencies and employees, am I correct that the 9 documents would not protect survivor or spousal benefits?
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct. These documents do not replace or maintain the 1,138 state and federal privileges tied to marriage. Nothing can do that. So these documents are around how to protect yourself ultimately, in as many scenarios and situations as you can. But if there's a federal benefit that you're no longer allowed to leave your spouse, doing these documents won't allow you to leave that benefit to your spouse.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Terry. Terry Miller Vaughn. All right. Corinne or Corrine, depending on how you pronounce it. Or neither. Now you're creeping towards you, Thomas.
Ready.
All right. All right. The optimist, Thomas.
Yes, yeah. So mine is similar to the question before. So I live in New Jersey, as you know, I'm one of your clients. We have more protections here. We're in a good state for that codified into law. What really happens day one if Obergefell is overturned with regards to some of these federal rights? Like, does Respect for Marriage Act protect my ability because it's recognized by New Jersey to file a joint tax return still, or does that just go away?
Yeah. So good question. So first and foremost, there was like a two-part question there. So what happens the day that it gets overturned, first and foremost, with the federal benefits, let's say, or state benefits?
Yep.
And again, disclaimer, other than my disclaimer that I have bad PowerPoint slides, is a disclaimer that I am by no means clairvoyant or know for sure what's going to happen. And I mean, the world that we live in is absolutely crazy. These are my thoughts based on, doing this all day, every day, and having lived through the last 17 years and seen. So the Respect for Marriage Act is its own thing. The federal government and or Trump would have to attack the Respect for Marriage Act and try to nullify it. If they don't, it stands. And like that slide that I showed you with what it was enacted to do, right, will stand. Even if the federal government doesn't try to attack it, if Trump doesn't try to attack it, the religious exemptions, the big loophole of religious exemptions are there so that the red states will try to attack it. So we'll see how that plays out. But the Respect for Marriage Act is its own thing, and that was meant to codify into that everybody in this country, no matter what, out of this, would always get the silver. But if you lived in Florida, nothing we can do. You live in Georgia, nothing we can do. But that every American should have access to the federal. That was the impetus, the intent, the reason behind the Respect for Marriage Act. Okay. So they'd have to attack that separately through the religious exemptions that exist, and or the executive orders and all the other ways that I mentioned that they could attack the Respect for Marriage Act. So that's its own thing. That's why I like the two-tone of the pen, because it's not all one sentence, not all one breath. When
Yeah.
Obergefell goes away, that's dealing with the orange piece, right? So now, as far as federal benefits, let's say we do lose them. Let's say we lose some of the Respect for Marriage Act protections and we lose federal benefits, or, however it goes. I don't believe, even as vitriolic as this administration is, that it would happen overnight. Even when we got marriage equality, we were allowed to retroactively file 3 years worth of tax returns and recoup all of that. That if Obergefell falls today on August 19th, that they say something like by December 31st of 2026, that's all gone. Giving folks some time to figure it out. It's a complete hypothesis. I have no way of knowing, but a lot of folks think that marriage equality can't be overturned because of the millions of marriages that are dependent on it. That part I don't believe. But because we know that the Supreme Court does not believe that it's a constitutional right. Like, they are correct. The Supreme Court are what's called textualists. If it is not in the text of the Constitution, it doesn't exist. It's not in the text of the Constitution, people. So how this plays out any different, I don't know. It's about how they're going to make it as non-disruptive as possible to folks. So I don't know. Was that helpful, Thomas?
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Okay. David L. Ro, you go. Since you're waving at me and everyone else is a no face, you win. All right, go ahead.
My question is, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Should I put my wife on the deed of our house, or will the revocable trust cover that issue?
The revocable trust is what will go on the deed. So I
Even
need to
if-
know a little bit more information to make sure that this is, doable. But right off the bat, assuming all is well, then what's your wife's name?
Felicia.
So the joint revocable living trust of Ro and Felicia will go on the deed. You'd have a new deed at the end of this, but it's a twofer. Instead of putting your wife on and then putting it in the joint trust, we can do that twofer with the marriage certificate based on some things that I need a few more answers on, but.
Okay, that's good news, because they want so much money to add somebody to the deed.
You're legally married, right?
Yes, oh yes.
And where are you?
I'm in New York. We were married in Connecticut.
Yeah. No.
And
it's just the cost of the retitling.
Okay.
It's just the retitling cost. So the recording fee to the county in which you live, and then the quitclaim deed. So depending on where you are in New York, for my clients, it ranges anywhere from $11.50 to $14.50 all in, with the recording fee and the deed prep. And a title company does it.
On top of what the estate planning fee is?
Yeah, because that's a cost.
Okay.
There's a cost to the recording fee to the county in which you live.
Yes.
There's a cost to the title company preparing quitclaim deed. So that's always separate. And we handle that at the end, because you can't put anything in here until it exists anyways.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds good. All right, we'll be in touch very soon.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Ro. Absolutely.
Same here.
All right, Terry, go ahead. I called you earlier. You're the first person I called.
I'm sorry. I was having technical difficulties. So my wife and I got married in Washington, D.C. in 2012. We now live in Maryland. And I'm wondering, do we need to get remarried in Maryland?
Nope. You are good to go. Yeah, no need to get remarried. For anyone, there's select few amount of times where I recommend that, and it mainly involves trans folks in a marriage, where they have their dead name on the marriage license and can't get it updated. And so again, about threshold for safety and all of the things, you know, and I say that, but you're not supposed to get remarried. Like, no one's supposed to marry twice. Like, every time you fill out a marriage certificate, marriage license, it says you've been married, before. And then if then if you say yes, they're going to want the divorce decree, right? So it's kind of a problematic thing. But yeah, but no, you are good, Terry. All right, David L.
Hi, Angela.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Okay, so am I correct in saying that the 2014 Whitewood versus Wolf, the PA decision that overturned the ban, if Obergefell was overturned, would it just go back to that as the status quo in PA, meaning all the marriages that have been performed are safe?
Yes, all the
Okay.
marriages since 2014 are safe. And even those ones that shouldn't have been performed, the 174 in Montgomery County, for the there's some people on here who are part of those 174. I do love Bruce Haynes, but he shouldn't have done that. Even the Commonwealth came back and said that those were valid. So yes, it doesn't matter who you are, where you are in the country. If you entered into a marriage and it was legal, where and when you entered into it, you are good.
In Pennsylvania.
Anywhere in the country. I mean, even if you got married in Canada,
Oh,
as long as you entered into a marriage when it was legal when you entered into it, you have a marriage
okay.
certificate.
So the PA lawmakers that are trying to codify same-sex marriage in PA, is that just gravy then, or does that
Yeah,
provide
because the Supreme Court case can be overturned, right? That's what we're here even talking about is it's Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, but there's nothing better than codifying it into law. You would need, the whole House, 2/3 the Senate. I mean, it's not happening kind of
right?
thing. Whereas over a generation or two, we could get a makeup of Pennsylvania Supreme Court justices that we don't like. Next thing you know, it's 20 years down the road and Whitewood's overturned.
Okay, so Whitewood makes it safe for now, for the
Right.
foreseeable future. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
it's more than gravy, but it is like we should have it. California's doing it, Colorado did it. New Jersey did it a long time ago. But yeah, good
Okay,
question.
thank you.
You're welcome. Felicia.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I have a question. So, my wife and I, we just got married the 1st of January. Try to do it right before the inauguration, just in case something like this came up. The question I have is, when I moved up here, when we got married, I owned a property in Maryland, and I still do. And she owns her property in DC, which she still does, and we have no plans of selling it. And we want to do a trust, an estate plan. And just wanted to know would that be very difficult to do or?
No,
I mean,
not at all. I mean, especially where we are in Pennsylvania and where you are, you throw a rock from, Pennsylvania and you hit New Jersey kind of thing,
right.
right? So same thing with Maryland is 50 minutes away, depending on where you are in Pennsylvania. So there's a lot of states in the
DMV.
Northeast, especially, right, where they own property in multiple states. Unfortunately, that is a probate nightmare. The laws were written
Mm,
400 years ago when they didn't think our horse and buggy would be going from, Philadelphia to Asbury Park every other day, right? So
right.
the probate laws are written around real estate, and you have to go through the probate process in every state in which you own real estate. So you
Mm,
have a multi-state probate issue on your hands, all resolved by revocable trust. That's why I say this is your probate avoidance tool.
okay.
So super simple. You know what they say? It's what's simple is not always easy. What's easy is not always simple. This is both
Mm-hmm.
easy and simple. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank
uh,
you for answering the question. We'll just have to email you because I know it's a lot more details you need that we can't cover in this call, but we're
yeah.
definitely going to email you and set up an appointment.
Yeah, you're good to go. That's awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Julie O.
Yeah, hi. My partner was just granted a legal name change, and they're currently in the process of updating their identification documents. I'm wondering if we want to get started with this process, if we should wait until they have all of their updated identification, or if it doesn't matter.
If it's underway, I would.
Great.
You know, it's not something that is update worthy if you had had them like 5 years ago and then this happened, and because you'll always have the name change decree to prove that this person is this person kind of thing and tie them together. But if it's underway, I would just wait and avoid the update. Make it
Thank you
clean.
so much.
Yeah. Haley.
Hey, thanks for taking the question. Um, Mine's more tax related. It's like a couple of questions that are more tax related.
I
Um,
went to law school because I don't do math.
that's
But
fair. It's fair.
hit me with it. I'll see what I can
Um,
do.
so like we actually just went through the 9 documents with you guys and are still kind of processing through that. It's been a great experience. But one other complication with this administration has been the changes to taxes, particularly surrounding student loans as well.
Mm.
We try to keep our professional network as queer friendly as possible. And within our state, that has been really hard to find like a tax accountant that is, equipped to handle conversations like that. Um, do
Where
you
are you?
have I'm in Rhode Island, so like Mass isn't far away. And we always have that opportunity, but um it it's it's sometimes I like to keep it within the state too.
Hmm.
But for other folks who may straight up not have any advocates, do you have somebody within your network, or do you have a network of like tax accountants that we could refer ourselves to or anything like that?
Yeah, so literally someone just reached out yesterday that's part of like an LGBTQ accounting um, trade association to ask if I'd speak to the group. I haven't, it came in late yesterday and I haven't, um, had a chance to touch base with him. So I'll reach out to him, see if they have members. I think it's a membership type thing in Rhode Island. And even if not, I'm sure he knows someone who does. But like, yeah. So what are the odds that an LGBTQ accountant network just reached out yesterday? So email me separate with that in the subject so I can um, address it, and I'll email him and ask.
Perfect. Secondary question goes back to the revocable trust, though. I know that there are tax implications between revocable and irrevocable. Can you speak a little bit about those? I think I just want to clarify like what I want to be aware of, and if we ever want to change from a revocable to an irrevocable later down the line.
Yeah, so zero tax implications with revocable. Um, Separate from the tax issue, though, you're way too young for anything irrevocable unless you're like a physician or, some sort of industry where you get sued a lot. And we do it for asset protection, but otherwise, I don't like irrevocable anything. I mean, it's no longer yours. You
Yeah,
irrevocably gave it away. And that's why there's tax implications with that because it was yours, but now it's this other entity that you've created like an LLC. So just like LLCs have to file taxes, irrevocable trusts do too. So,
okay.
I would go the revocable route and you would know if you needed irrevocable because now it's either elder law planning, it's asset protection planning for some reason. Like there'll be something in your life that will have triggered the desire to look into an irrevocable trust to protect assets.
Doesn't revocable trusts have like an implication where they can still pursue like debts after death or things like that versus an irrevocable? Maybe I'm just
Right. There is
yeah.
zero creditor protection, no asset protection, no tax sheltering. It is an alter ego of you to you. There's no EIN separate from your social. You are giving to you what you already own through
Perfect.
you. Yeah,
Awesome. Thanks for the clarification. I appreciate it.
absolutely. Kiana.
Hi, Angela. My question is similar to your wedlock one. If we're living in California and we're planning to get married in Georgia, would you recommend us getting married beforehand, like officially in California before doing it in Georgia, or just having a celebration in Georgia?
Yeah. I would keep it with the state that you're in while everything is so uncertain, right?
Okay.
Like you live in California, it's a good state. It doesn't matter if people have a red state marriage certificate. At the end of the day, regardless of what happens, the state in which you choose to reside will either recognize your marriage or not,
Okay.
right? And
So
so
if we move, does that make a difference? Like, would it just be updating documents?
yeah, as far as the 9 documents, the main two that should always be updated for when you move to another state are the will and the trust. Again, when I said you have to go through probate in every state in which you own real estate, also the state in which the documents are governed. So if you left California and moved to Georgia and then died in Georgia as a Georgia resident, not just on vacation or something, right? But with California documents, we're going to have to deal with California on that.
Okay.
And then have ancillary in Georgia. So you always want, at minimum, those two. And then sometimes, depending on where you're moving, the other documents as well, based on the state compliance, state to state.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Masha or Maisha?
Masha. Yes. Hi. Thank you.
Masha.
Appreciate you. So I have a question. My fiance and I, we are in our late 20s, so we've been considering marrying sooner than originally planned because of the uncertainty around the whole situation. And so I'm wondering if Supreme Court would revisit or even overturn this case, and how that would affect us. We're trying to move abroad next year, and we're concerned how our marriage might be recognized in the US and internationally. And also, we are residents in DC, so I'm wondering how that whole situation would work.
So narrow down the question for me. I kind of got lost. So
so we're in DC.
you want to get married?
Yeah, we're gonna get married soon. We're gonna file in DC. We're gonna have a celebration in Texas, and then we're moving abroad next fall.
Okay.
Would our marriage be recognized and protected if?
So all the same things that we've been talking about ultimately, as far as, you know, you won't be a resident of DC, so you'll be abroad. So what the US is doing won't matter. If you're in Spain, Portugal, Ireland, like some sort of awesome LGBTQ haven, they're going to recognize your marriage from the US. In DC, I don't see becoming a red state anyways, but regardless, again, place of celebration and the fact that your marriage was legal and valid when you entered into it, and you have a valid marriage certificate as of the date of 8/19/2025, when the laws in effect were that you could get married in DC at that time. Portugal, Spain, Ireland, whatever the case may be, will accept it because they acknowledge, marriage equality. And then how the US will handle you when you come home will be about where you choose to live, right? Georgia versus, wherever. I feel like I'm being really hard on Georgia today. Hope there's no one from Georgia here. All right, Sarah.
Hi, thank you. So I had a question because my marriage is considered both heterosexual and same sex, depending on the context. So my husband is a trans veteran, but all of his documents, his passport, birth certificate, state ID, were all changed, both name and sex prior to our marriage. But his military record never got changed. And so in the eyes of the VA, we are a same-sex couple. And so that affects like our family benefits. And I guess I don't know what to do in this situation because he can either out himself to the VA and potentially risk losing those benefits, or I could potentially risk losing my healthcare and other benefits. So I just didn't know if you have any advice on what to do in this situation.
No, I mean, it's the exact rock and hard place that you've, detailed. I have a lot of clients in similar situations. I kind of spoke to it earlier. What does your marriage license say?
It because of the way that Virginia did it, they just list spouse. But when we gave them our identifications, like like mine states female and his states male, and so the IDs that they have on file show us as a heterosexual couple, but all of the marriage
Okay.
licenses that they issue just say spouse.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the VA, we're at where we're at with the military. It wouldn't out, himself to the VA in any way, shape, or form. But again, it's up, I can't help make that decision based on, like you said, it's either we do this and then this happens, or we do this and then that happens. It's just
No, I
what,
appreciate that. I think I just didn't know if there was anything I'm missing, but that's fair.
yeah, no.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Lauren.
Hello, my fiance and I live in Colorado, and we're planning on eloping and getting married in Hawaii. With both of them having it codified in their states, do you recommend we stay and do it in Hawaii, or would it be okay to do it in Colorado, or I mean, vice versa, stay in Colorado or do it in Hawaii?
Yeah, they're both codified into law. So even if you moved, the issue would be is regardless of how you like where you get married, if you end up living in a red state where it's not recognized, right? So whether you had Colorado or Hawaii, whichever, or the person who said California and Georgia earlier, if you end up living in Tennessee when you go to get divorced and it doesn't recognize marriage equality, it won't matter that your marriage certificate's from Colorado or Hawaii. And when it was wedlocked. Now, the whole point of the Respect for Marriage Act was to give full faith and credit to that. That's the whole point of the full faith in or the Respect for Marriage Act. So assuming that stays and that doesn't get eviscerated and attacked, or that the state in which you're in, Tennessee, doesn't have RFRA laws, Religious Freedom Restoration Act laws, saying we don't want to have to follow that due to our religious beliefs. So it's like if you choose to move to Tennessee, then you made that choice. Or sometimes with work, someone doesn't have a choice. But does that make sense?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure with the legality of Hawaii and Colorado being codified that we're okay either way. We're not looking to move to any red states, no offense. But we just wanted to make sure that our state, that we weren't going to make a big issue if we got married in Hawaii where we don't live in Hawaii versus just doing it in Colorado.
No, the only issue is if a red state becomes involved, and that's where you are when you want to get a divorce.
Cool.
That's where the rubber meets the road. Otherwise, it will never matter where your marriage certificate. And it would only matter if you're in a red state getting divorced if the Respect for Marriage Act wasn't respected.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You're welcome. Kelly.
Hi, I live in Texas. I'm looking to buy property in Georgia, which of course red to red is a bad deal, but it's what's probably going to happen. But my question is, in Texas, when we go get a driver's license now, you have to have a original birth certificate or a state issued birth certificate with it. And when you go renew your driver's license. My question is, on my marriage certificate in Texas, should I get multiple marriage certificates just to be on the safe side, just in case? Because I know Texas will be the first state to nullify gay marriage because they're the first at doing everything with voting rights, everything else, and all. So, would you suggest that I go do more of that just so that I have copies of it when they say I'm not married?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. And did you change your name by chance?
It's my name. My wife changed her name.
Okay. So moving forward, I'm not recommending folks change their name if just like put it on pause. Not necessarily forever, but with the SAVE Act, while I don't think that, while we know the SAVE Act won't pass Congress, a lot of folks don't realize he issued an executive order in March, basically enacting the SAVE Act, but through an executive order. And now that executive order has become law, and obviously this is something that would affect every voter, so it would get certified as a national class. But there's 84% of women in the United States have changed their name in some way, shape, or form due to marriage. So this was his way of basically, when he said no one needs to vote anymore. So to the extent that like the birth certificate matches your name, and if it doesn't, fixing that, so many people, if it actually goes into effect at the next election, most people forget to vote on the day of, let alone 12 weeks prior, fixing a birth certificate issue or finding their birth certificate or ordering their birth certificate online. So not even just for the reason that you said, but also with the SAVE Act. So yeah, great question.
That's good information. Thank you.
You're welcome. Karen Steele. You gotta like double tap the screen or something. Phones are hard. All right, well, you keep playing around. There you go.
Can you hear me?
You got it. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I was we were together in Colorado. We were together 27 years. We got married when we lived in Connecticut. Then a year later we moved to Georgia, marriage null and void. Then Obergefell, married again. Fast forward to we got divorced back in Colorado. They determined it was a common law marriage of 27 years. My concern is some of these benefits, like being able to file under her Social Security. Is that like, they can't give me an answer. Social Security says we'd have to investigate. So I'm kind of at that age where I'm getting ready to do this, and I don't even know if I can, if it's legal for me to do.
Right. So we had issues like that as well in Pennsylvania because we had common law up until 2006. And so if the relationship predated that, whether married or not, but you had to meet the elements, which was, even if you had a ceremony and all the things. I don't know for Colorado per se, but what you would do here is with that divorce decree that declared that, because it says that on the divorce decree, right?
Yes.
There's some sort of, you would take that and file that and get a marriage declaration order.
Okay.
So that declared you divorced. So by virtue of being divorced, like through that decree that said you're common law married, if the Social Security office doesn't know what to do with it, one way that you could do is petition the court to get a declaration saying these two people were married on this day, and the court order becomes your marriage certificate. So I've done it for folks after marriage equality when one person died, and within, again, that 3-year retroactive period, they were being nice, where it was like, we weren't married, and then my partner of 47 years died. I should be getting Social Security survivor benefits. And for a while there, they let it go. But then after 3 years, they're like, you should have just gotten married. Like, it's been 3 years, right? But for folks who died like 3 days later, 3 months later, a year later, even after death, if we could prove the elements that they were married, we could get a court decree stating, and that court decree acted like a marriage certificate, and then they took that to SSA, and then they got the benefits. But you're more than halfway there because you actually have a divorce decree from a judge stating that you're married, that you're divorced, but you don't have the married part and the date to prove like 10 years. Does that make sense? And I'm just spitballing. I don't know Colorado law, but that's
well,
what
now I live in Arizona, so there's that complication.
Right. Well, we can do some legal gymnastics. You have a decree that says you were divorced.
Yes.
Which can only mean you were married.
Yes.
So we have to find a court willing to issue a decree saying that. but you don't have a marriage certificate, so SSA doesn't know what to do with you
Right.
because they can't buttress that 10-year.
Right.
So there's a solution to this.
So I need to find a court in Arizona that will give me a decree of marriage.
A marriage declaration petition is what it's called here.
Okay.
Yeah. Where we set forth all the reasons why they should declare you married.
Okay.
Even though you weren't in the traditional sense for whatever reason, and you have this reason.
So do I apply and then wait and see if they deny and then come to you and say, help me? Or do we proactively do this?
I would proactively do it. I could find someone in Arizona to help you. I would proactively do it because it's important, and it's Arizona, which is super red. So you don't want to annoy anyone right off the bat with, you know what I mean? Like I'd go in strong and polished and yeah.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Awesome. All right. Reach out.
Thank you.
You're welcome. CJ.
My question has to do with, it's back to the West Virginia law, and I was the one that gave you the really super long question about West Virginia. My spouse retired from a county job, basically. So she has a county retirement that runs through the state. So she took a reduced retirement so that I would get spousal, support later if something happened to her. So she's been getting reduced for several years now. So if they overturn and it goes back to West Virginia law, they weren't able to codify it again. That said there were previous laws that had been overturned, but they weren't able to get the Supreme Court to take it up. So, they declared that it was legal before the federal government basically did. So my question is, do you have any suggestions on what we should do other than calling the retirement board, and West Virginia being the state that it is, to figure out, is she going to get that money back? Or at this point, can she go back in and change her retirement benefit to now get the 100% instead of a reduced?
Yeah, I mean, something that hasn't come up yet today is the possibility or the option that folks do get grandfathered in. That, the quagmire of undoing certain things and benefits, ceasing and whatnot. I mean, health insurance, not so much, but, depending on what it is. And again, the counties can make decisions, state can make decisions, companies can make decisions. But that is also a real possibility of, okay, as of this day, again, looking forward, right? We will not honor new, right? But you have a marriage certificate. Unlike our friend in Arizona, we're going to get you one, I promise. You have a marriage certificate that has a date on it. If it predates Obergefell date, right? So again, no crystal ball. I don't know. But there's that option. If that doesn't happen and there's no grandfathering in, then it's, you're at the behest of whatever the county says.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a reduced retirement, but that's also that, basically if I would pass away, I worked as a city firefighter for years and have a pension through them. So it's the same kind of thing, that she may not get those benefits. So that's one of the reasons we're trying to shore up everything that we can. We're just trying to figure out whether there's a way for me to be able to put my pension into some kind of trust that would be like an estate. Would go into the estate, and then she would be the estate executor is what we were looking at.
No, the pension documentation, and then the TPA, the third party administrator, they control all that. Because or else when we couldn't get married, there'd be a lot less upset people, pre-marriage equality, that's all you heard of. I worked my whole life for, as a firefighter, and my partner never got the pension, you know what I mean? So if there was a way around that, we would have figured it out prior to this. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Thanks for no new good news.
Yeah. Thanks, CJ. Lauren, and then Carol Ann.
Hi, so I'm trans and I was planning on changing my name after I get married. At the same time, I changed my last name. But should I do that? Should I change my first name before we get married?
I would do it in one name change
Okay.
so that
And
there's
then
less name changes and documentation. There'll only ever be one name change decree that you're doing.
okay. And then I was also on the fence about even changing my last name. Is there any like legal benefits to changing it or not changing it?
Well, like I said before, I'm Angela Giampolo, and if I get married and I change my last name to Smith, if the SAVE Act, comes into effect and at the next election, everybody who goes to the voter booth has to have their birth certificate. If their name is different than on the birth certificate, then I'd have to like the con to anyone changing their last name by virtue of a marriage right now is all of this, SAVE Act BS. The fact that you're already doing your first name change, it's 6 to 1, like do them both. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like if you went to vote and SAVE Act happened, you would, and that's what's like even more, in my opinion, vitriolic of that bill is trans folks would have to out themselves at the voter booth,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So then a lot of folks won't want to vote because they won't want to go through that at a voter booth, especially
Mhm.
depending on where they live and all of the things. Um, so it's absolutely having the effect of voter suppression as a result. But the fact that you are changing your first name regardless, I would do it all in one fell swoop. So you just have one, right? When you go to buy a house, you go to do things legally and you have to get all these like the two name change things together. It's a pain. So I would
Okay.
just do it the one and you'd be
Okay.
good to go.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, Carolyn,
Yo, Ange, what's up?
how are you?
I'm good. I never even thought about asking you this. Are prenups editable?
Yeah. Yeah, that is a good question, actually. Prenups are living, breathing things. It's the date upon which you signed it classifies it as a premarital agreement. But like I had a client a couple years ago, they were buying a house. So the prenup said basically what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours, what's joint is joint. But they were going to buy a house, and one of them had a bunch of debt in their name, but he has all the money, but he's a business owner, so he has just a lot of debt. So they used the other guy's credit and the rich one's money and bought the house in his name, but per the prenup, the house belonged to the guy who's on the deed, which was not the one who put up all the money, right? So they came back to update just vis-a-vis that property. So stuff happened, or people have kids, and one person stops working. I often put in my prenups that the one who is working contributes to the other person's retirement, full max contribution. Why should that person go 6 years without, or 5 years, or 10 years without contributing to their retirement account? While we can't deal with the kids in the prenup, that's only a custody agreement that can deal with that. We can deal with all the finances around children. You invent Google 11 years into your relationship, right? Into your marriage, right? Like a lot of my co-founders and business entrepreneurial clients, before they go into business together, make sure that everybody spouses have signed a prenup as it relates to the business that they're forming. We're going to spend all this money and all this time creating this big business, and then you get divorced, and now you're 25% of our business is stuck in your divorce. So as life happens, there's a lot of reasons where people could check in on their prenup. Good question. Catherine.
Hi. Um, it was kind of a two-parter. The first is, do you work with people who live in the DMV who want to do the prenup courthouse and estate planning move? Or could you
Estate
recommend
planning,
someone?
yes. Yeah, I can recommend someone if you want to do both together.
Yes.
Yeah.
And would we just email you directly about that? Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
And
And
I'll
then
put you in touch with her.
perfect. And my other question is, essentially my partner and I are 23, 24. We've been together like 3, 4 years, want to get married. We're in the DMV area, but we wanted to get married in like 2 to 3 years, but we're feeling like we don't have an option. Would there be any legal advantage to getting married before if they do overturn it? like the marriage would be recognized in all 50 states or something like that, or will it just steadily get chipped away regardless and we should get married more on our timeline?
So I am, so, yeah, like I said, an eternal optimist, right? And so I would recommend hedging your bets. And so many animals all of a sudden. Hey, buddy.
Aw.
So I would recommend hedging your bets and getting married because we don't know what's going to happen. And if there is a grandfather situation where folks get grandfathered in, or maybe there are haven states and you have the privilege enough that you can move to that state, or you know, my aunt and uncle moved here when they were like in their 70s and from Canada, and were not married because in Canada there are 4 privileges tied to marriage as opposed to 1,138. So I come from a long line of straight people that never got married. That's, I think, what made me a great marriage advocate, because it's like, this makes no sense. And so the minute they set foot on US soil, they went right to the city hall and got married, because you should not die unmarried in this country with all of those benefits and all of the things. So got another pup. So yeah, so I would, even Hillary Clinton, that one slide, right? Google Hillary Clinton stance on gay marriage right now, and she's saying, go out and do it. Like, safely with the prenup. Safely with the prenup. When marriage equality hit 10 years ago, all the wrong people got married on day one. I had one couple call me 3 days later, can you get us divorced? I'm like, what? They're like, nobody knows that we did it. We got drunk, we just went, we got married. Can you do an annulment? And I was like, no, annulments aren't a thing, actually. Like, that's just religious. Like, you're married. Sorry, it's only been 72 hours, but you're married. So as long as you were already planning on it, right? As long as you were already planning on it, and it's not something that all of a sudden, because of the news, you're like, let's do this thing, but you had never discussed it before, then do so safely with a prenup and hedge your bets. And and then we'll see what happens.
Okay, perfect. We also both have potentially progressive disabilities, and that's registered. Do you think that this could severely impact like our ability to support each other in the future?
Yeah, so whenever one of my clients from an estate planning perspective comes to me and are considering marriage and there's disability benefits, I loop in my disability attorney to assess that. I have no way of knowing. There's a lot that goes into whether it's like an adult disabled child, and you know what I mean? Like, I know enough to know the terms, but I just refer that to, but even straight people don't get married because of that. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
that's
of
definitely
course.
something, yeah, that's definitely something worth investigating um, before making that decision, for sure.
Of course. Thank you so much. This entire
You're
talk has been
welcome.
so, so helpful.
Awesome. Thank you. Um, Tamalin.
Hey, can you hear me okay? I'm on my phone, on my car.
Yeah, no, perfect.
Okay, cool. So I had 2 questions that I think you kind of answered, but just wanted to get clarification on. So my wife and I had our wedding in Pennsylvania, and our marriage certificate is from Pennsylvania, though we live in Jersey and have always lived in Jersey. When we got married, somebody just told us to get the PA license for some reason. So I know that it's codified in Jersey, but not in PA, but there is case law that says that it's okay. But should we, just to be safe, should we get a Jersey marriage license instead of PA? Like, I guess, I don't know,
So,
like get a
the
divorce or
one
what?
big thing, and there's not as many people left to hear this as there was at the beginning, but the reason people too flippantly suggest, should we get remarried? All of these benefits, the woman in Arizona who needs a marriage declaration in order to get her Social Security benefits, all of these benefits, the most fiscally advantageous benefits, are all based on how long you've been married. So if you do just flippantly, for no reason, get remarried, you're starting the clock over again in a way that you may not want. And again,
Okay.
sorry, I lost you. In a way that you may not want. And so it's an assessment that I do with my clients based on why are you thinking about it? Again, like my, trans clients where their safety of having a marriage certificate with their dead name on it they've been married 6 years, they'd rather start the clock over and potentially, not be truthful on a government form. Like there's a lot that goes into, quote unquote, getting remarried. So that's why, but with PA Jersey, you have nothing, I shouldn't say nothing to worry about, but like you said, we have a Supreme Court case. A lot would have to happen. And we're in the midst of codifying it, which I think will be successful. So I think you're good.
Okay, awesome. And then the second question, because you had mentioned the SAVE Act. My wife took my last name. All that paperwork was done probably earlier this year. But I mean, should she change it back to her maiden name? Is it really, does that make sense for her to go through that? I don't know that she actually will, but should I suggest it?
Right. Again, obviously up to her, but I would, we're not getting out of this particular political climate anytime soon. And so while the SAVE Act itself will fail in Congress, there is an executive order out there stating the exact same thing. And it will need to get litigated, but then how many elections will happen in the meantime while that's being litigated, right? Like the Supreme Court now says any executive order that is created goes into law, into effect until it's litigated. So I just, I would just rather be overly cautious. But yeah, it's a lot for folks to even get a hold of their birth certificate, let alone like do a whole name change again. Do you know what I mean? I hear you.
Yeah.
But
so, I mean, if she were to go that route, do we need a divorce decree to say why she's changing her name? Because I know when she did, we had to mail our marriage certificate. Does she need anything,
no,
or she can just do it?
It would have to be a name change. You only get a free name change by way of divorce or marriage. So you should have to pay for it.
Oh, she would just pay for it. Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right, Zoom user. I've been wanting to say that for like 7 minutes.
I'm gonna assume it's me.
Yeah.
I don't know how to get my name on there. I was trying to figure it out. And I apologize in advance if there's noise in the background. They're installing my window. I'm in New York City. My wife and I have been married since 2019. Your seminar has been amazing because it's just raised so many questions. We have a prenup. I added her to my co-op unit as a stock and lease, I guess, co-owner. My question is should I get the prenup updated? I didn't even know that's such a thing. I thought everything that happens after supersedes that. So that's my number one question. Should we update a prenup? Because previously it was going to get given back to me. Should we get a divorce? That's the number one question. Number two, when should I meet with your team? We are in the process of possibly relocating to Portland, Oregon. But that will be probably just a stint for 3 to 5 years. Then our hope is that we relocate to France, while keeping our co-op unit in New York City. My gut feeling is that we should meet with your team after we make the relocation, should that happen before the end of this year. And then before our next move to France or back to New York, we then should reconnect with your team to update all the documents. So that's my second question: timing of meeting with your team and the cadence, if I should say, or sequence of events.
Mm-hmm.
Last question.
Yeah. 3 questions. One more coming. Or?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Go ahead. I like to get it all out.
I plan on watching your September 9th webinar. I already blasted out to all my friends to attend. But I might be driving and not be able to truly participate, and I don't want to not ask this question. France looks at trusts very unfavorably. They look at it as a tax loophole. We've been told preliminarily by our tax preparer to do away with trusts if we have a U.S. trust. And my question is the revocable living trust easy to, I don't know if the word is dissolve or do away, while we live in France? And should we reestablish that when we come back? If we
Okay.
come back.
So, right. So that's the key there is if, so there's no like black and white answer to that, but I'll start with the prenup one. In your prenup, it must mention how jointly owned property is treated. So you don't need to update it just because you did something, which was take separate property, which had been defined as separate property, and you what's called transmutated it, you commingled it, and you made it joint. But in the prenup, it says if you do that, you got to know you've just made a choice and you made it marital property. So you don't need to update it. I'm 99% sure there's a paragraph around transmutation or commingling of property, and you just did that by adding her to the deed. And so you had to have done so knowingly, and intentionally. So you're good there. It's updated. It's both yours, and a divorce would both be yours. Cool. And then, yes, cadence, momentum, timing, Portland first. 3 to 5 years is a long time. So yeah, I just had a client, we did that with Vermont, 5 to 6 years in Vermont, and could be less, 3 to 6. So, the 3 to 5 years that you're in Portland, as you know that you're going, that like I have clients right now, they're moving to Mexico. There's shipping containers coming this weekend, and in 90 days they'll be in Mexico, and then their legal address will be Georgia moving forward. But they're currently Zooming with me from North Carolina. But they know that in less than 90 days, they're going to be living in Mexico, and their address will be with actually their tax preparer best friend in Georgia. So I'm like, all right, well, it makes no sense to do North Carolina docs when you're going to be in Georgia very soon. So, so once you actually know that it's happening and like your container's coming kind of thing, then we can start that process for Portland. Perfect. France is the worst country ever for this. Like you're literally choosing the worst probate country ever. So what I do more so than a tax preparer, I work with financial, hold on 1 second. Let me let these people in. I think they got that in. I work with financial advisors who have experience with particular countries. So obviously since the election, I've done Vietnam, Mexico, Sweden. A client of mine worked for IKEA, put in a transfer. He's there, but he ended up in Denmark, right? So when you said, and if we stay, so my understanding has been with France that, let me back up. There's a very specific answer to you. You have a co-op in New York. 2 out of 10 times am I successful in getting a co-op into a revocable trust, that the board management just doesn't want to do it. And the whole goal of revocable trust is probate avoidance. Right. France loves probate. They force probate. They will take land from married couples. That's the loophole, is they don't want any probate avoidance. It's not that it's a tax loophole, it's that it's a probate avoidance tool. And France says mandatory probate to everyone. Even 1/3 of your land after your spouse dies before it goes to the kids. Like they take everything. I mean, they're horrible. In death, So, but I always, especially right now, post-election, a lot of folks are trying different countries on. Just trying it out and seeing, so we don't upend your US-based estate planning until we find out where you're actually going to say, all right, we're doing permanent residency or we're going for citizenship. Other than that, just being a resident, living somewhere for more than 6 months, that you're going to have a US foothold. You have land here. This is the first time in US history that people are leaving in drones, that are leaving 401ks and properties behind. What they're all doing is working with an estate planning attorney and a financial advisor to make sure that that foothold is protected here while they go off and live wherever they want to live. But then once you decide to make it permanent, then we have to look at the 2 treaties, how they talk. Yes. And that's where France would be like, nope, you're not allowed to have that, and da-da-da. But like you're a ways away from needing to listen to what France says.
Got it. So short-term pain of filing for the trust, because it has a separate kind of filing, I think from what I'm gathering is it's worth for the security that we might need eventually if we don't end up staying in France or a country like France.
Well, and better news than that, there is no filing. There is no pain. You sign it and you don't even know, you don't even know that you have it. Like once we talk, like after 9/9, like you'll understand more, but there's it's an alter ego of you. Other than signing it, you won't even know you have it.
Okay.
And then you'll go about life. So there's no pain.
Yeah.
Right. And then, we're talking from, if it's 3 to 5 years, you're in Portland, and then at least 2 or 3 years before you figure out finality on where you want to live. So we're talking potentially 8 years.
Yeah.
As an estate planning attorney, I told the person who was going to get married in fall that he could die 3 months from now. So 8 years, like stuff can happen.
Yes.
So, and there's no pain. Like I said, there's no filing, there's no cost benefit analysis. There's only potential benefit, no downside. Yep.
Well, what comes to light is that how extensive your network is in terms of international considerations, in terms of, either coming here or going somewhere else. So that's really helpful because it just alleviates all the coordinations that down the road we have to deal with. Okay. Thank you so much. This has been
You're welcome.
Just so empowering instead of crying into Instagram. I was in France when I got your post and I was like, finally somebody helped me stop crying. I mean, I still got emotional. Even today, like listening to all our families, like queer families that having what they have to go through. My questions are really privileged questions. You're just a tunnel of light for us right now. So I really, really appreciate your help. Thank you.
Thank you. For everyone here, like everyone is an ally to someone. We all are, right? And so just remembering that, I had a call last night with these two guys and they were expressing gratitude and we both teared up and, we're all in this moment together, right? And that's why I started doing these Q&As, is that people have questions, but also it's all like-minded folks. Like you said, I mean, word family came out,
Yeah.
And, so yeah, thank you for saying that. And, this has just been awesome. So,
well, I'll see you on September 9th. Thank you.
There you go.
And on the gram.
Right. And don't look down while you're driving. It's estate planning. I got to get you through the process first. Okay.
So true. Nice meeting you, Angela.
You as well.
And good luck to everyone.
Thanks. Carlisle.
Hi, Angela. Thank you so much for your time and certainly echo the previous sentiments. I'm a Kansas resident. My wife and I have 2 children. I am the birth mother, and we are very apropos timing in the midst of estate planning. According to our lawyer, since we are married and her name is on the birth certificate, we apparently are okay for her parental rights. I am not entirely confident, certainly at least for long term. And there is no second parent adoption here. So just curious if you have any recommendations of documentation, verbiage that maybe we should incorporate in the process for that additional protection for her.
Protection. Yep. So far I have Kansas, Florida, and Utah who have said that. So I will look into that. And then so obviously the estate planning documents, because all of my families, like I make it mandatory when my adoption clients come to me for an adoption. I deeply discount the estate planning and I make them go through that, because at the end of the day, you're bringing this whole other human into the world. And if God forbid something happened to the two of you, where would, the child live? Who would be the guardian, children's trust, like all the things. So we all need planning, but other than my Chihuahua, there's no one dependent on me. So it's just important for definitely the estate planning to get done. And then I would do that. Did you say about to be born?
No,
or born.
So both living.
Both.
Yes.
Okay. So post-birth guardianship document, the document that I do for folks pending the adoption. So, which if you email me, it's like a one-page form. I'll share that with you so that you have it while we look into if there are any other options in Kansas.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so
All
much.
right.
Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. Yeah. Giselle.
Hello, thank you so much. This has been amazing. We got engaged the day this news came out. And so we are moving up, doing our paperwork, the 9 forms, and all of that. So I have two questions that I haven't really been able to wrap my mind around. One is about what the filing will look like in the future if all of this happens, in terms of like business healthcare benefits and like filing jointly, or if that's even going to be a thing. And then my second question is, in terms of September 9th, what can we do in advance so that when we meet with you, we can make the most out of that session? And are you going through all of the documents on that session?
That is a great question. I didn't think about that. um, yeah, because I'm gonna provide a workbook that I put together for this so that you could work through it. And the idea being that at the end of the process, at the end of the 2 hours or so, you've done the whole estate planning process ultimately. So yeah, and so I guess timing wise, a lot of folks get overwhelmed. Like it's an overwhelming workbook, but it's not meant to be consumed. I don't give it to my real clients. I work with them one-on-one, get the information out of them, and then I do that part, or else no one would want to do this. Right? So going back and forth on how long I have you sit with it, because the type A overthinkers are going to go down a rabbit hole without me. And exactly. The fact that you even asked this question means it's you. Like, so yeah. But yeah, let me think on that. But that's a really good, point. And if nothing else to address in the email correspondence leading up to 9/9. All right. So the filing piece, what do you mean by filing? The filing of the
Taxes.
9 document? The filing of taxes. Okay. So yeah, so again, we don't know which way it's going to go, right? Like when we got marriage equality, we could retroactively go back and amend if it made sense to 3 years worth of tax returns. But you only did it if you would get that benefit. If the federal rights, or if you live in a state, what state are you in?
Maryland.
Maryland. Okay, so you're in a good state. So depend if like federally we can't file jointly anymore, right? Because again, the Marriage Respect for Marriage Act got eviscerated. It's not standing. The federal government found a way to not let us have our federal, benefits. If that happens, then we can file joint. But I don't imagine that they will. I mean, because the IRS, 2/3 of the workforce just got fired. They're going to be like, no, you know what I mean? Like it would just be a nightmare. So having some sort of date certain where it's like by this time you will not. So let's say it happened today, right? Like even divorce, when people get divorced and or married, they're considered married for that calendar year. So maybe it's something like if Obergefell got overturned on August 11th, for all of 2025, like you're going to file as though you were married, but then when 2026, 12/31, the following year, no. Something like that. There's going to have to be some way, to figure things out as seamlessly as possible. But it wouldn't be an issue unless the Respect for Marriage Act is eviscerated. If it stands and they don't get around it and they leave it, and you're in Maryland, so the state level religious objections won't matter because you'll be in Maryland. So federal will be federal, but then if you're in Georgia, you may not be able to file the state taxes as joint because they don't recognize you as such.
Gotcha.
But IRS 415 is a federal, yeah, go ahead.
Perfect. And then in terms of benefits, like business benefits or insurance, things like that, does that go when the federal go, or will that be at a state level? Because we live in a different state than the business that my partner works for is located in.
So that will depend on the business itself. I think businesses are going to make a comeback and provide these benefits because they're going to want to retain good employees. Okay. Yeah. So
Cool. Thank you
good
so
question.
much.
You're welcome. Sarah, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question about the SAVE Act. So my fiance and I have been on the fence about legally changing our names after getting married. If we did, we would hyphenate our two names. Um, I've been under the impression that if we got our passports updated with the new last name, that we could use that instead of the birth certificate. Is that true? Is that something
Yeah,
that should get
it's
cut
one
out
or
of
the
the
other.
bill?
Yeah, no, I believe it is one or the other. My whole point is like so few people, not so few, but it was it 34 or something percent of folks have a passport. Like I'm
Right.
thinking on a macro level, like those
Totally.
84% of women that are impacted, all trans folks who have to out themselves. But again, if you know, changing your name is, I always tell my clients, you're the highest authority on you, right?
Totally.
So do you, and you know that you'll be able, that you'll have the passport, that you'll have the documentation if we're forced to show it. And as long as that is true, then yeah, do you,
Okay. Do you
you
think they
know?
could take the passport option out of the bill? Potentially?
They potentially they could, but they're both, you know, potentially. They
Okay.
could always do anything,
Yeah.
but you know, everyone has a passport. Not everyone has I'm sorry, not everyone has a birth certificate. Not everyone
Right.
has a passport. So if anything, I see them like, um, you know, if you have a passport, then you've gone through additional, you've put yourself in front of the government even more. They've like seen your retinas and you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're traveling the world, like they got you. You know what I mean? So that's you kind of thing if you're traveling on a valid passport. So I feel like that's like extra, but it's just not everybody has it.
Totally. Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We got Sydney Graves.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
Great.
Yep.
Okay. My question is actually really related to the last one. My wife and I, when we got married a couple years ago, we both don't like our fathers, so we picked a new name. I went through the court process to change our last name so it would be on the marriage certificate for her to do the easier way. Um, so I don't want to do that again. It was very expensive and time consuming. And so for the SAVE Act, obviously our names don't match our birth certificate. Can we have, is it like you have to have that and a copy of the marriage certificate or a court order, and that is enough?
That's what ties you together as the name that you're voting under
Okay,
at that
great.
time.
Because we
Yep.
keep all of our stuff all together, so like we have all of that stuff. So we have that already, so we don't need to consider changing our names back.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, great.
You're good. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Alicia.
Hi, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
I'm really mad and I mean, everybody has been so gracious, and I am just so pissed off by the climate of everything. And I apologize to everybody for that because I feel like this has been so positive and uplifting. And I am typically a very, very much an optimist, but I am not in this situation. And I'm bitter. And I'm really struggling to get out of that and to figure out a way to find the high road, which I feel like we've all taken far too much, and I want to go low, low, low. That being said, our situation, I live in the miserable state of Texas, not by choice. That's where my wife is employed. That's where she's from through no fault of her own. However, this is not the place that I want to be. That being said, our first child was born in Michigan. We had, through her employer, legal insurance, which was amazing. We paid like $8 a month and had legal insurance. We were able to set up our initial living wills and our, I believe, power of attorneys. We did the adoption for our daughter during that time frame. We have since had a son here in Texas. And I know, even though I've gone to a couple of different agencies who have said the birth certificate is fine, I do not believe that. If you can take one thing, you can take everything. So at this point, I want as much protection as possible for her, for my children. I am the older parent, even though I am the birth parent. So, if math is
Inheritance
mathing,
rights.
then I could be gone sooner. That being said, I don't want to pay for that shit. I'm pissed like that I have to pay for this to have to happen. So I'm trying to do it myself. And I can't find anything anywhere. I can find information on what I need to do. I can't find the like legitimate petition for adoption. I can use Chat GPT. I can come up with one that way. I haven't gone to the court yet to ask them for if there is like an actual form that they have that we can fill out and file. And I don't want to, somebody wanted to charge us $5,000 just for the initial process. And I didn't see that. I looked at the Pride plans and I've seen like the bundle and all of that stuff. I know second parent adoption isn't like technically under that
part of that
umbrella. So not seeing those forms, like, is there a place that I can go to just find that so I can try to do it on my own? Because we've heard different stories where, because she's already lived with our son will be 2 in a month. We just celebrated her, 7th wedding anniversary yesterday. Like, yay. And maybe we don't have to do a home study, all of these things, like we could get bypassed through a lot of it just because of our situation and scenario, even though we are in Texas and a same-sex couple. But I want to do as much of this as I can by myself. I don't know if I'm just trying to prove it that it can be done on my own, or if that just gives me some power back in the situation. Maybe that's truly what it is. But again, I'm rambling because I'm mad. So I'll stop so you can answer if there's anything that comes off of that. So I do apologize for the ramble.
Okay. No worries. So first and foremost, I'll say that, and I saw some people in the chat being like, I'm right there with you, and all of the things about the anger and the bitterness and, and at the end of the day, and I know this sounds cheesy, but like, then they win. If you're sitting in that energy for X amount of hours a day or even minutes, or if that's the first thing you think of when you wake up, or like, they've won because they're not impacted by that, just you. Do you know what I mean? And so if it means being in a group like this, we're going to meet every 2 weeks. And so typically the real format to this is I share some news. There's always good news. I do share the real news, the what's happening. I don't sugarcoat it, but I, really try to bring good news. And then there's also breakouts. And so folks, like at the very end, there's always a topic and or an interview or an interview. This one was just obviously this topic, and I didn't bother talking about any other news or whatever. There's always an estate planning tip or something separate, like something unique about maybe how to plan for crypto or, guardian of children or something that's not like, the standard. And then at the very end, I talk about personal development. A life hack is something that's more mental health related. And then there's a breakout. And depending on how many people are there, like 3 people, 4 people, if people hate breakouts and that would be me, I'd drop off. But if that's your thing, then like you'd get to meet some people. That's why I put it at the end, because if it were me, I'd be gone. So I don't want you to leave before the breakout. But it's all to say, that especially when you live somewhere, like you said, miserable Texas, that the folks that are like-minded, that are gonna, and you have your wife, you have your kids, like you have, your closest, but then you go out and you see all these Texans, and that may not be what you want to see or be around, that at least virtually, you can be around folks that may be 3,000 miles away, but are like-minded and uplifting and, sort of.
Not all Texas is bad. I'm not saying all Texas is bad. Like we live in a college town. We're a little insulated in terms of a bunch of different things, but the politics, let's just put it that way. Like the politics.
Right. I love Austin.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean,
exactly.
There's great places. There truly are
Right.
accepting places and people. However, the general consensus is that we don't belong. So,
Right.
go forward.
So as far as finding these forms, if they're not on the court websites, then they're not on the court websites. I added, that to the list: Kansas, Florida, Utah, and Texas. Again, I know folks who have gone through second parent adoptions in Texas, lawyer friends of mine who do that in Texas. So sometimes it comes down to the county that you're in, the literal human that runs the, orphans court county that you're in says that's not a thing. Like New Jersey, it's so much easier now over Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, we still have to go to court. You still have to get fingerprinted. Even if you're married, there is no home study. The big thing in most states around home study or not is married or not. So there would be no home study. But in New Jersey, we do all the things. We ship it out. The court gets it. They give us a court date. We don't have to go to court. We don't have to go to Zoom. On that day, the judge signs it, and it's just done. As long as you can prove that there's a cryobank involved, that you're married, the doctor's letter who did the IUI IVF, and the birth certificate, those three things, cryobank affidavit saying genetic material 1, 2, 3, 4, resulted in a live birth. That's what the cryobank affidavit says. Then the physician letter says genetic material 1, 2, 3, 4 resulted in conception on July 14th. That's all he can do. She can do is conceived on X day. And then the birth was born on X day. And then the birth certificate born on that day. Those three documents together is the chain of title, if you will. That means there's no random dude out there whose rights we're terminating. Right? And so then we become an uncontested adoption. Pennsylvania, we still have to go to court, but it's happy court. It's 5 minutes. We hug. I hold the baby. It's great. You know what I mean? Like, it's the only time ever. So, but in Jersey, we don't even do that. It's gotten that easy, but it's never going to go away as a thing. No matter how easy they make it, Jersey knows it has to happen. It's just, we're going to make it as easy as possible for folks. Right. And so, so yeah, I'll look into it more, for you. Where are you? You said a college town, but where?
I'm in College Station, so Brazos County. And the person I spoke to I believe she was based in Austin, and she's like, we kind of file through there because it's easier. So that's something I haven't looked at, is going outside of my county for the paperwork. Although, I mean, if the Google machine can't find Texas petition for adoption, I feel like that's, I don't know where I can find it otherwise.
Right.
And just be clear, like, so everybody doesn't think I'm a bad mom and I don't want to do this. I do want to do this. I do want to give my son all of the protections in the world. I'm just mad that we live in a world where it has to be done and I have to pay for it to be done. That's the biggest thing. My child and my children and my family are worth every single penny I have and don't have. But it's just, I don't know. It's demoralizing. When we decided to move to Texas, the way I got through it was that we were going to make the state better by moving here. And I want to think that we did that, but I don't know. So sorry.
Big hugs. Big hugs.
It's an emotional day. So who knew? Who knew? My goodness.
Crying at a legal seminar.
Right? Like, who knew
Big
that
hugs.
would happen? All these people were like, oh, she needs something. I swear, I'm a therapist too. Like, I take care of myself. I do all of those things. But I appreciate you all. Thank you for putting up with my shenanigans. Thank you for answering my question. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, and reach out.
Okay, we'll do. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Susan.
Hi there. First, shout out to Giselle for the question for those of us who like to prepare in advance. I'm glad I was on my list as well. And Angela, thank you for giving us whatever we can to be, pencils at the ready. Appreciate that. So I have a couple questions. The first one's pretty quick. Like, I heard mention to another person who asked about doing a prenup and the estate plan at the same time. Is that your recommendation? I mean, it makes sense to me.
Not at the exact same time, because if you're using the same lawyer, even if you're not, it's too much at the same time, I think, for you to grapple with. You know what I mean? But the best way to go is solo representation, right? So I represent the one person in the prenup. Then once the marriage is over, things, let the dust settle. Then that person opens up joint representation. It's easier from a conflict perspective, ethically, to go from solo to joint versus joint to solo. They both can be done, but we prefer solo to joint versus joint to solo.
I'm sorry if I couldn't find on the website. You do practice, or you are able to help people in Illinois?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So my next question is a little bit of a future look at this. I know we're really focused on Obergefell right now, but the possibility, right, of loving being over as looked at next, right? We've all been expecting that that's part of the plan. And so my question is, would these 9 documents still be enough if that ended up happening, or would they need to be modified, post? Or are they set up in such a way that if the worst were to happen, and we add to the list of terribleness in this country, that we wouldn't need to adjust them? And I guess it applies for queer and straight folks. And I know you said there were like 3 documents you don't recommend that straight folks would need, but if they are an interracial couple asking for people, would it be better for them to get all 9, right? If they're interracial.
Yeah, 100%. And then as far as additional revisions, like if you would have asked me 3 years ago, would I have amended my documents the way I did post this election? I wouldn't have believed you. If you've told me that when I started my law firm geared towards the LGBTQ community 17 years ago, that we'd be worse off right now than when I started, I would never have believed you. I thought at this point in my life, I'd be pivoting to international LGBTQ issues, right? That the US would be set. I've done my part, my little sliver. Now I'm going to go off and help LGBTQIA plus and, folks in countries, as opposed to a complete about face. So all I know is when something happens, I pivot, I figure it out. And if the documents need to be updated, we update them. Again, it's called the state planning, ING, because plans are meant to change, right? As well as us reacting to the governmental stuff that we can't control, to Alicia's point.
That's right. Okay.
All right. Awesome.
Thank you.
Sheila.
Sorry, it took me a second to figure out how to unmute.
No worries.
So some of my questions were already answered. Primarily, it's about name change. My wife and I are married. I did not change my name. She did not change her name. We do have a 2-year-old son. I am the birth parent. We've already done second parent adoption, so that is all squared away. As he's gotten a little bit older, we did give him her last name. Initially, we decided that was really important to her as the non-birth parent, that he have her name. I had kind of always thought I would hyphenate my names, but never got around to it. My question is that in this current climate, would there be any kind of legal ramifications of hyphenating my name now, primarily with respect to his birth certificate and his second parent adoption, since my name was not changed at the time that those were filed, if that makes sense?
Would there be a benefit or pro to you changing your name to match his?
Either changing my name to match his or leaving it as is, based on my current name being what's on his birth certificate and on all of the legal documents from his adoption.
Maybe I missed something. So tell me again. So his name doesn't match because you hyphenated it, but you didn't do that at the.
So I have not currently hyphenated. I have been considering it. I've always considered it, but I just never got around to it. As he's getting older, just socially, it gets a little bit. A lot of people assume that I'm not. I have to explain it basically. So socially, it would be nice to have that match him. As the birth mother, I'm not worried about it. I grew him. He's mine. But it's more of just like a social thing. And my wife's rights are protected, and he has her last name, so I'm not worried about her end of it. But if I were to now retroactively go back and change, if I were to go and change it now, would I be putting myself in a murky situation with the fact that his birth certificate and the adoption paperwork was all done prior to hyphenating?
No. If that's the concern, no. I mean,
Okay.
we have the birth certificate, you're listed on the birth certificate, like you just decided to do a name change late in life, which, is just a hyphenated kind of thing. So if it's about the timing of that and nothing about the SAVE Act or whatever, then no, there's no
Okay.
con to that. Yeah.
Yeah, and
About the
correct
SAVE
me if
Act,
I'm
how
wrong.
old is
Go ahead.
he? How old is
Oh, so
he?
he's 2 years old. So
Two
he's
now. Okay.
way far away from when he would be even ready to vote. And
Right.
yeah, we do want to get him a passport just in case. And that's something that my wife and I already plan to do is get updated passports. So, um, if I do decide to hyphenate my name, that is something that I would make sure is updated on that prior because of all of the Save Act stuff happening.
Hmm.
But definitely just wanted, I had that kind of moment of pause of, would it make things more complicated with um his paperwork? So I just wanted to
Yeah,
confirm
I mean,
that.
name changes are always complicated and annoying and keeping track of them and all the things. If you can
Right.
avoid doing it, you do, but like, you know, um, so, but yeah, socially, and again, you're the highest authority on you, right? And socially, the just constant, you know what I mean? The day to day to day. If that weighs out, then, but as far as LGBTQ stuff and, you know, again, having his birth certificate on you, your wife's, the adoption decree, because if you are traveling and he has hyphenated and you have your last name, like if there's any question, you have it at the ready, you have all your travel documents. Um, so that's just helpful.
Okay. Thank you. I
All
appreciate it.
right. Absolutely. All right, Lisa.
An extremely similar question, just slightly different. My wife would not be hyphenated, so she would be going back to her maiden name if she were to do a name change. And I was just curious if you could touch on how that might affect any of the legal paperwork or a possible second parent adoption that now, after hearing from multiple callers, that I may have to do, even though, we were in a similar situation. A lawyer looked at us like we were crazy here in Michigan because our names were on the birth certificate. So now, possibly looking into a second parent adoption. How would that affect it if, we were to do a name change, going back to a legal maiden name versus anything that was hyphenated? Does that have anything different or?
No, and my co-counsel in Michigan is awesome. And so I can put you in touch with them
Awesome.
for the second parent adoption piece. But yeah, no, whenever I'm doing an adoption and there's been a name change, whether it's from being trans or, just maiden name, anything, the name change decree. Just prove, so you have a birth certificate that says something, but then we're filing and the IDs and all the new stuff that we're adding as exhibits don't match the name on the birth certificate of the child that's being adopted. You just have to prove and tie that together.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So as long as you have that, you're good to go. And then, reach out, Michigan Second Parent Adoption, and I'll put you in touch with that firm.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Jennifer.
First of all, thank you for having this. A lot of great information. Somebody may have already asked this. We have several friends that were not able to sit in on the call, and we were wondering, since it's being recorded, is there a way you can send the link so we can share it with them?
Absolutely. Yep. Everyone who registered, let alone who attended. But even if people registered, so many people, which is why I'm doing the September 9th one at 6:30 p.m. A lot of folks replied that they were working and just couldn't attend. So we promised that we'll send out the link and the PowerPoint. I'll send you anything and anything I have.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Todd. Nope, I can't hear you for some reason. Is that me or can't hear me either, Mimi? Okay. Come back to you. I can read lips. Jason. Absolutely, Helen. Yes, Todd.
Okay, sorry. Since Jason wasn't responding, I'm like, I'll use this as a segue. So thank you very much. Like sentiment that everybody else has said. I have been following you since the day I think you joined TikTok. For the grace of God, you popped in, and I have just thanked you so many times. But thank you. So my husband and I have been together 28 years, married since 2015. Prior to us getting married, we both sought out the same attorney to start doing estate planning for reasons of him going through like a family divorce, essentially, like from his family, taking away parts of the farm. They had a movie theater business, all of the things. He never got his trust done. I have one, but has never been touched in almost 12 years. So we will be having an appointment with you in October, the precursory one, to both get together and meet with you. My question is, how does that really work? Do I have to go through and do a whole dissolution of trust in the state of Minnesota now that we live in Wisconsin? All of the things. I have no idea. Like, are we going to end up having to do individual ones? Because again, that's where we were prior to us legally being married. We just don't know what to do because we have a lot of joint property. We are considering leaving the country, whether that be permanent or temporary. Kind of TBD, but we own the property that we have now, and we kind of don't want to give that up. We don't want to give it up without that fight. So I guess in preparation of us meeting with you, what things do I need to get done or bring to the table so that I'm ready to meet with you, be ready to start up the new stuff? What is this going to end up costing me to now redo everything that I thought was behind us?
So first and foremost, my claim to fame is there's no homework.
Okay.
So a lot of the type A, the Giselles of the world are going to be very upset that if she's still on here. But so at the end of the day, people are like, what do I need to bring? What do I need to bring? After that first meeting, and now I know that it exists, right? But so in advance of that meeting, if I can review the trust that does exist, I would look at that to see in that document, it talks about how to revoke it. Don't have to dissolve it. It's not an LLC. It's nothing complicated. Okay. We may not even have to do anything except sign a new one. The key, though, is like, if this is your revocable trust, is there something in it? You said you didn't touch it, and he didn't even sign his. So hopefully there's nothing in it. And if there's nothing in it, then we may not even have to do anything about that one. We're just going to start fresh with brand new documents. When you actually have something in it, you have to amend it. Unless you want to take the thing out of it. Yep. And then sign a new one and then put it back in. And then that's annoying.
So the property the property that we owned together in Minnesota, we were tenants in common. So both of us had 50-50 claim on the property should that have happened. We did that intentionally. I think that was the only thing, but when we moved to Wisconsin, that asset technically sold, and we've never updated to actually include our new home. Like anything that really in it is like, we've got it as listed as like, my trust is listed as a beneficiary on most of the bank accounts that my name was on solely, so that I knew that my money would go to him and he would take care of my mother, who is still living and lives with us actually. So I have to, and I don't want to get into the details because we have that, but I think that's the only thing I would consider you saying is part of the trust itself now.
But we sold
the property. Yep.
Right. So in life, like I met with a 92-year-old guy, and he born in Philly, lived in San Fran, moved to Florida, bought and sold homes multiple times, all through his revocable living trust. Now he's 92, living in Philly, renting, and he's like, let's revoke this. And because now at 92, it's empty. But stuff goes in and out throughout your life. As long as when we meet, there's nothing in there, then we don't have to deal with it. We'll revoke it, formally, because it's lived, it's done a thing, it owned a home, it sold a home. So now we need to put it to red, but it's not, it's a one piece of paper that you sign when you sign everything else. So it's super easy.
Okay.
but the, it's just sometimes people are like, oh yeah, whoops, there was that one account that's in there. So as long as it's not that kind of thing, you know what I mean? That there was just that one property and it got sold and now it's empty, then great.
And honestly, I don't even know if the property was ever named in the trust. It was just named as an asset that would be distributed upon death. So
oh no, it would need to be retitled, a whole new deed, like that woman Roe, that Roe's gonna do with like retitling it into the trust. It's a whole process. You would know if you went through it.
Okay, then no, we have no assets in that trust. It's literally there for conversion of asset upon death.
And I always tell people who do estate planning, if you have an empty glass, it's as if you've done nothing. Okay, the whole point of this is to actually put stuff in here, but the water doesn't just get in there. At the signing, all I've done is given you an empty glass.
Yeah.
And not enough estate planning attorneys stay on you as far as like, okay, we need to actually put the water in there. So a lot of my clients who work with me, then they go to their parents and they're like, do you have an empty water glass? Because now they're wondering, because they're the ones inheriting from their parents. Like, you said you have estate planning, but did you actually fill your cup? And they're like, who is this estate planning attorney you're talking to that?
Okay.
But so
that helps
it's
a
great
lot
to get this done, but actually, putting stuff in there is the key. And even if you don't have real estate's the main trigger now, that it's something that you can grow into. What did Amy say? So many times you find that someone is an RLT but never put anything in it. 100%. 100%. So many are walking around out there with expensive empty glasses.
Well, every time I find out something, it's like you can't put it in if there's a lien on if you're basically, you have property, and I don't know many people who at my age have paid off their entire home, but it's like, well, maybe you have, good for you. I didn't, but I want to make sure.
And that's, but you can transfer a house with a mortgage on it in a revocable trust.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's 1984, 1981, a law passed. You're transferring from you to you. If there's any retitling on the deed itself, it's just Amy and I were on there and I'm removing Amy when I put it into my trust. No, could trigger the acceleration clause. But as long as the exact same two people of interest on the deed are transferring it to themselves or to their solo revocable trust, and you asked, do we each have our own? Can we have a joint? We figure that out in the design meeting.
Yep.
It really depends, prenup, no prenup. Do you have assets separate? Folks who've been together 37 years, they bought and sold multiple homes. Their money's like rinse, repeat, recycle. You know what I mean? Like, it's like my money's your money's my money kind of thing. So in that design meeting, I figure out, like, are we doing two solos or are we going to do one joint revocable living trust of Angela and Todd, right? So we figure that out and then go from there.
And you just answered it. So I am looking forward to our meeting. We have to get through our Italian trip first while we go look at other properties to see if that's where we want to be. But
for your trust. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then we'll just have that ready for you and be like, here, we need to retitle this Italian estate, this villa.
Right. So. Right. That we bought for $1 that now we have to renovate. I see those online too. Yeah. Find me one.
I'll get you. I'll make 2 or 3 for.
Awesome.
Thank you very, very much for your time. I'm looking forward to it. And thank you for continuing the fight for all of us. It is appreciated. And knowing that even one person is fighting for all of us is huge. So thanks.
Big hugs. Big hugs.
Big hugs to you.
All right. Anyone else have a question? Or are we nearing the end? Oh, I think my other dog's coming. You coming, Nova Nose? That's not. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. You come here. You come here. Let's go say hi to all these people. Oh my goodness. There we go. Say hi. Oh, Ted. Go ahead, Ted. Trolling from work, so I can only use chat. Ted and I had a wonderful time trying to get his house into his trust because the first lawyer misspelled his very easy name to spell. Let me go all the way down. I don't see, I kind of caught the last bit about the empty glass. We have an RLT for a house if we buy an investment property. Yes. Yeah. You think real estate, you think the RLT. But I kind of don't know if we ever finalized the corrected deed with that other firm in Delaware. Did we? Did all that get done? And is it in your, do you have an empty glass completely? Oh, you're chatting. So, but email me because we did get one and you'd received it last summer. I don't think so, that I remember. But yeah, let's chat about the one that you live in, the one that the other firm needed to send us because it was with them, so it wouldn't have been you. It would have come from that woman. But and let's get that one recorded, or maybe because it was Delaware and they had to record it. But we'll figure it out. That one needs to get recorded. And then when you have a revocable trust, every time you buy, this is the only type of trust that can get a mortgage. So as you go, so right now, if you already have something on the outside, you got to put it in. There's a cost to putting it in. Rose cost to putting it in the trust. The retitling, the fee to the county in which you live, the quitclaim deed. So that is the cost to put it in. But then when you go to buy this next one, you do so in the name of this, and it goes directly in there. So that's the, for what you were saying, Ted. All right, we'll take a look. Where is that property located, Ted? All right, you email me so that we can, yeah, Delaware. So they would have needed to file it, but we'll figure it out. If not, I have someone in Delaware that can, if they're not going to want to do it. All right, so any other question? Oh yeah, we do. I'm Chris. Des, go ahead.
Hello, thank you for all of this. I had to step away for an hour, so you may have already answered this question. And but it has to do with durable power of attorneys. I'm just curious, do you tend to recommend springing or immediate, and why?
Effective. So it's springing or effective, and I only recommend. I only do effective. I don't do springing ever. And in the last 3-4 years, big box banks, Chase, Bank of America, banks like that are no longer accepting springing powers of attorney because they don't want to be in the business of having to decide that the event has sprung. So you very easily could end up in court or getting an affidavit from a physician, but like months can go by when it's a springing. And I say that without having asked, is it in a business context? Is it in a personal context? Like what kind of context? Because, you know, for business owners who like you want, it's a fine line of like wanting the business to potentially not operate for 2 to 3 months while we figure out if the event has sprung, or you know, the business could go under at that point. But if you give me a little context, I can give you more of like a why as to you. But in general, springing are looked down upon because, like I said, big box banks just don't accept them, are starting to not want to accept them because they've gotten in trouble for saying the event has sprung and then it didn't. In the event, for anyone who may not know, would be disability, incapacity. And so they're bankers and they, you know, then they take it and that means it acknowledged that the event has sprung and then they find out it didn't, but they took it. So.
Got it. Thank you so much. That's really helpful. But yeah, it's more of in a personal context. I mean, I am a business owner, but I'm a therapist in private practice. It's just me. I don't share it with other people. But yeah, it was more of in a personal context, wanting to put my partner as the, you know, primary agent, but then putting somebody else as the successor. And I was like, ooh, if there's a successor that isn't my partner, do I want them to be springing and then I need to be springing, or, you know, so it was.
Well, what state are you in?
California.
So California has an acknowledgement and acceptance of the agent where they accept. So there's 2 things you can do to get the effective one.
Okay.
Right? But also have a buffer. So, because I have some folks that are like, even with their partner, I don't want you to have effective, you know? And so a way that you can get it signed, but not, the way that I describe an effective durable power of attorney is you've plugged it into the socket. Like you have a power cord in the socket, like it's alive, it's effective upon notarization. But the acceptance page that they need to sign and get notarized is kept from them. So you signed and notarized it, and it's good to go. So if you become incapacitated, we don't need anything more from you. And then a lot of my clients will leave then that page with me to do due diligence or another lawyer or someone that they trust. And then if you're incapacitated, they get that date signed, and it doesn't have to be the same day. And Pennsylvania does it. The acceptance page doesn't have to be notarized. California does. So in Pennsylvania, we just hold back that acceptance page. And if you sign it in 2035, it's alive in 2035. It became effective in 2035. All we did was notarize your willingness to give that power to the person. They haven't accepted it yet.
Got it. And so we're holding off on the signature and notarization of the agents or agent.
Of the agent.
Yeah. But
and then I don't have the successor sign right away.
Okay.
So I only have your primary person sign if you want, but you don't have to do that. But I don't do the alternate to your partner yet.
Got it. We just leave that blank for now until something happens to me, and then they can get it and get that signed.
Then they can come figure out. Exactly. They can find me and come figure it out, and then I'll reprint that page, and it's been proven and I feel comfortable, and then I give them that page. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. All right, Chris. Hello. Oh, it was in a chat. All right, so she's gone. All right. Morgan.
Hey there. We put it in the chat, and I also just set up a request to do a consultation with you. We were on the Pride Planner, and we do own a home in South Carolina. We're California residents. Is it and we're going to go to the September 9th thing, but we're taking it very seriously that we should have done this yesterday. So can we start the Pride Planner, like go through that process, do the paywall, and then, hopefully someone reaches out about that, or should we just do the consultation with one of you and then start the process?
So they're two separate.
Okay.
Like Tom is Pride Plans, and then mine would be working with me privately, like through the firm. Okay. So if you take the quiz on Pride Plans,
yes,
everyone says like, I failed. Like there's no failing, but you would fail because you have property in multiple states. Yeah. Or your property is outside of like the state that you live in. But if that's the only quote unquote complication, right? That when you're answering that quiz, if that's the only complication, it's not that big of a deal. When it comes time to putting the water in your trust,
right,
you can come back to us for that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was the other part of the question. Okay, yeah, that's the other part of the question is, do we need to get our investment out of South Carolina?
Not necessarily, but if you aren't in love with your financial advisor, or like why they're there, like investment property or investments money?
Property, just a home.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So no, it will stay there, but it'll get retitled. We're going to retitle South Carolina. Your California residents, your documents are all going to be California. And then there'll be a new deed for South Carolina. Do you also own in California or just in South Carolina?
We also own in California. Yes.
Okay. So both of those will have new deeds, and they'll go into your joint revocable living trust of the two of you. But like if your asset distribution is not complicated, everything to one another, and then if not, 50-50 to our sibling. You know what I mean? Like if it's that piece isn't complicated, then you can come back to us to make sure that your cup gets filled properly.
Okay. I think maybe we need to just do the consult with you first, because there is the little trickiness of
most of the assets are in one of our names, and not in the other. So.
Okay. Yep. Yep. All right.
Okay.
There'll be a scheduling link when the email goes out with the recording and the PowerPoints and all the things.
All right, appreciate it. And Chris did put
right.
their question in the chat saying they were in a quiet office.
Well, now I can see Chris.
Oh, they're there. Okay.
Yeah, they're there.
Thank you.
Right. You're welcome. Bye. Hey, you. Are you muted? You're muted. Well,
Can you
oh,
hear
there we
me?
go. You got it. Got it.
Holy crap, that was a pain in the butt. Sorry. Yeah, I walked onto the floor to ask this. So, okay, you kind of touched on it earlier, but I want to have a little elaborating. So earlier I was saying that I'm actually getting married in 2 weeks in Australia. You kind of touched on it, but I'm curious if you think the Australian license is going to hold when we come back here to Pennsylvania, or if we should actually get married in Pennsylvania, which you kind of said that to everybody, I think.
Yeah,
Or
yeah, like
if we should just
like
focus
even
on our estate planning, and otherwise we're probably cool because of the way Australia stands.
yeah, like because if you're worried about how it's going to be recognized in the U.S., right? If you end up living in Tennessee, even if your marriage certificate was in Pennsylvania, let alone Australia, they wouldn't acknowledge it. So
Right.
it doesn't matter. Like, so since you know you're coming back to Pennsylvania and Pennsylvania will acknowledge it, totally fine. Right. And
Yeah.
if you do end up for some reason, like Alicia, who was on here earlier, who had to move to Texas, you know, because of her wife's job, but like never would have chosen Texas for herself. If you end up in a situation like that, it wouldn't matter if your marriage certificate was, again, if the Respect for Marriage Act doesn't exist and full faith and credit, it was not a thing, then, you know, it wouldn't matter regardless whether it was Pennsylvania or Australia. So yeah, I would say, you know, focus like in 2 weeks, you're getting married, you know, halfway around the world, do that, you know, then your honeymoon after that, then when the dust settles and you're back, then reach out and then we'll do the joint married estate planning piece when you're ready for that.
You know I will, girl.
Right.
I
Good to see
appreciate you.
Big hugs.
Always.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye. One more question, Ro? Go ahead. You've been front and center on my screen the whole day, even though there was like 400 people. All I've seen is Ro all day. I can't help you with that unmute.
There we go.
There we go. Okay.
Because of having to go and do the deed, should I go through you and make an appointment on the calendar, or through the Pride Plan website?
Through us directly.
Okay.
Yeah,
So just
through Jampilla Law Group. So reach out to me, and then it'll be an engagement solely for do you need the estate planning or just the property transferred?
everything.
Oh, everything. So yeah. Then we would that would be up to you. If you wanted to go the Pride Plans route, automated, not working one-on-one through the automated platform that Tom talked about, that would be Pride Plans. If you wanted to work one-on-one, then that would be through me. So that's up to you based on. You got me.
So what I do is I go on the site and make an appointment on the calendar.
My Calendly link to schedule will be included in the email that we send out with this recording and all of the things. If you just go to my website, you won't find my Calendly link. You'll submit a form, and then that comes into my inbox, and then I'd send you my Calendly link. So you can do that, Or you can wait for the email that'll come in 24 hours or so with all of this information. And there it'll say, here's Angela's calendar. Go ahead and book a time.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Bye.
All right. Anyone else? 3.5 hours, guys. These 34 people. I'm going to take a look at who these 34 people are because you guys are serious. I love it. Hold on. Jen. Is Jen on? I think Jen's on.
I'm still here.
So when we go to close out, I don't want to lose the chat with everyone's questions because there's questions in there I didn't answer when I was just talking.
I took all the questions and put them in a Google Doc for you that I've already texted you.
Even when you weren't here, you went back after and looked?
Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing is it doesn't have everybody's name next to it because sometimes the questions were going very fast.
Okay. All right. But so this has been recorded and then we'll close out, but we should be able to save the chat, right?
Yeah, there should be something to save the chat as well.
Okay. All right, cool. All right. All right. So September 2nd is just a normal hour-long Q&A. And then 9/9 at night, 6:30 will be the Pride Plans. Workshop, probably 2 hours, could be longer. I'll get with Jen on what we're going to send you out for that, workbook wise, all the things, since that seems to be the intention is, and then 9/16, the following Tuesday, again, just an hour long Q&A at noon. So Q&As every other Tuesday at noon, and then 9/9 will be that special Pride Plans, estate planning only workshop. All right. You guys were awesome. Thanks for hanging out with me all day.